and we'll see if that worked. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. We will find out. Hey, it worked. That's pretty cool. Alright, well, BioShock. It's pretty fun. It's a cool game. I'm excited to play it. Again, I've played it before. But, Daniel will get here at some point. Let me actually pull up the, Discord so that... Oh, how do I do this? It's weird the way I don't know how to be able to click out of the game without ruining everything. There we go. That should work. Well, I guess I'm just gonna start. New Game Plus. Ooh. I didn't even know New Game Plus was an option. Everything carried over from my last completed game. Oh. When you reach the medical pavilion. Okay, well, I might do that. Just because, Actually, no, I think I'm gonna do New Game because, the first time I played with a controller. And I think I would like to, I'd like to learn how to play keyboard and mouse. I think that's a little important. I'm gonna do medium. Actually, I'm gonna do hard. Hard sounds good. You know that 9 out of 10 ladies prefer the athletic man. Sports Boost Gene Tonic. Funny, funny. Mid-Atlantic. Yeah, eventually Daniel's gonna get here and he'll start
told me.
Talking about
Son,
40K, but for the time being.
You were born to do great things. You know what? They were right.
Interesting start to the game. I don't remember enough about this game to really talk about the story, but I know a lot of people like it, so... There we go. Still trying to get everything situated, because it's been so long since I've done, like, streaming in any sense. Oh no, I'm drowning. Oh, shoo. I saw the necklace and I instantly thought Martha Wayne. Oh jeez. This is a cool start to a game. I'm so excited to see Rapture again, just because Rapture is just so awesome. Well, I see the building I'm going to. Can I swim down? No, I can't. I wanted to see if I could, like, swim below the surface, but apparently that is impossible. Oh. Yeah, how did I survive this? That's such a great visual, though. I wonder if I just sit here, will I, see the whole thing go down? It looks like it's just going down. That's my guess, but I'm not gonna sit here. Oh, I can sprint! It's... Apparently I can sprint swim. That's fun. I do just want to see, like, is it gonna go all the way down? I assume so, but... Yeah, looks like it. I can jump. Oh, sprint is toggle. That's important to know. Oh, and it just stays on. I guess I just never stop sprinting if I have it on. Cool. I don't have a flashlight, so I apologize if it's super dark. Hello, Andrew Ryan. In what country is there a place for people like me? Nice, nice. Jump! Aw, I thought I jumped the wall. I cannot. So I've got an interesting experience with BioShock. I've played the first one. Haven't really touched the second one. Mainly because like the first time I played BioShock 1, it was super cool. I loved it. However, because as it is pretty obvious I'm playing the remaster, I played it with a controller, and I'm guessing that playing the remaster with a controller has something to do with like why the game kept crashing. I just know it kept crashing like all the time, and I hated it. I loved the gameplay. I thought it was super fun. I loved the world building. It is just super immersive. But the fact that the game kept crashing, it was very, very annoying. And BioShock 2 had the same issue. Except the difference is instead of just crashing randomly after I've saved, it kept crashing at a specific point early on in the game, and I just got hard locked. So, or I mean, maybe that's soft locking, but hard locked me out of the rest of the game in that like I literally there's nothing I could do once I reached a certain position in the map. Then it was just like, oops, yeah, that's it. So I haven't touched BioShock 2. And I haven't heard a lot of great things about Infinite, so I'll find out about that eventually. 10 fathoms. Oh. Oh, hello. Where's this coming from? I guess a projector's on the other side?
I am Andrew Ryan, and I'm here to ask you a question. Is a man not entitled to the sweat of his brow?
Hey, it's that thing that people
No,
talk about.
says the man in Washington, it belongs to the poor. No, says the man in the Vatican, it belongs to God. No, says the man in Moscow, it belongs to everyone. I rejected those answers. Instead, I chose something different. I chose the impossible. I chose rapture.
This is such a cool intro, though. I love it.
A city where the artist would not fear the censor, where the scientist would not be bound by petty morality, where the great would not be constrained by the small.
Petty morality.
With the sweat of your brow, rapture can become your city as well.
Ooh, the Big Daddy right there. That's cool. I love the world building here. Right, just like it all just looks super interesting. Oh. Interesting, interesting. I'm mainly playing this just to play it, of course, because, you know, Daniel's gonna be here talking about, Warhammer, but this'll be quite fun. Oh yeah, Johnny dies to a splicer. Johnny, be careful! Look behind you! Oh. Oh, poor Johnny. I remember finding this super creepy. Ugh. Their face.
Is it someone new?
no! Oh, geez, I hope nothing happens. Oh, hello. Well,
Would you kindly pick up that shortwave radio?
oh, right at the beginning.
I don't know how you survived that plane crash, but I've never been one to question Providence.
Oh, looks like Daniel's
I'm
ready.
Atlas, and I aim to keep you alive. Now keep on moving. We're gonna have to get you to higher ground.
I'm gonna turn the sound down just a little bit.
Take a deep
Just so then, because Daniel's gonna be... Either he's gonna be calling, or he's waiting for me to call. Let's just drop master volume down a little bit.
breath and step out of the back.
And then we'll turn dialogue down. Voiceover volume, yeah. Oh,
I won't leave you twisting in the wind.
hopefully that's good, but we'll find out. Okay, and, oh, clicked on the wrong thing. Discord and call. I'm also going to look at audio levels as that happens.
Hello.
Hello! Oh, that's coming over as Discord and desktop audio, so I'm going to turn one off and listen in on the stream, see how that's going. How's it going, Daniel?
Right. It is going quite well over here. How are you?
I'm doing good, yeah.
Excellent, excellent.
Nice. It sounds like you're coming through good.
All right.
Yeah, hopefully everything is good audio level wise. I don't know. It's been a bit since I've done any streaming.
Sure. Yeah, no, I can hear you just fine. Okay. So,
We're gonna need to draw out
this is something that we've been plotting for quite some time.
Yes, something I know. I'm assuming this is very similar in style to you know, when I did that video of me talking about God of War while Kyle and I played a video game. I assume that you want something very similar where you're talking about Warhammer while I'm playing a game.
just a bit further.
Yeah, so okay. Warhammer is a very, very wide subject. It is hard to pin down precisely to what talking about Warhammer really is. So I actually wanted to begin with asking you first, what do you know and what do you want to know?
Well, honestly, I started off with sometime this week. I was like, ooh, I better, you know, be in a position where I could ask questions. Let's just
Sure.
let's literally just watch like a quick tutorial on. Oh my gosh, I'm an idiot. I could just jump over these boxes. But you know, just a quick 3-minute explanation of the entire lore of Warhammer. So I'll have some questions.
Okay.
And let's see, I've got a list here of a couple questions. But I guess we could start off by just saying, oh! Well, I know, I remember this game. It's a bit of a horror game.
That is how it goes.
Just a second, let me just take this guy down. There we go.
for it.
So I guess if you want to just explain your, you know, what got you into Warhammer.
So, all right, Warhammer and I have had an interesting path. It began back. Oh, actually, I was about to lie. I was about to tell a fib.
Oh no, don't do that.
I started my Warhammer journey before I knew I was starting my Warhammer journey, which was I think. Okay, do you know that there are some animations on YouTube that are Space Marines killing furries?
Oh, okay. I've never heard of this, but I'm intrigued.
So so the whole bit with those animations are that the Space Marines portrayed in the animations are from the Black Templars chapter, and they hate aliens, mutants, and witches or psychers.
Hmm.
And they saw furries as mutant humans, and it was like this weird horror aspect of furries secretly being mutant humans, mutated from lonely nerds, and then the Black Templars killing them. That was a weird episode, but anyways, it was a funny sketch, and I kind of watched it a long time ago and kind of filed it away as a silly thing I watched one time.
Hmm.
Then, a phrase entered my vocabulary that I was unaware was a Warhammer thing, which is blood for the blood god, skulls for the skull throne. That's a Warhammer thing, and
Oh, really? Blood for the Blood God is from Warhammer.
it is.
I just heard a lot of people. I think it was around 2020. People just started saying that.
Yes,
I
it
remember the
is.
big thing was like Technoblade saying that during Minecraft stuff.
Yeah, it is indeed a Warhammer thing. It is a chaos god thing.
Okay.
We'll get into them because you can't talk about Warhammer without talking about the chaos gods. But anyways, and then it finally came to a head my junior year of high school,
Hmm.
where I made a new friend, and his name was Thomas. And he had just moved in. We became pretty fast friends, and he wanted to introduce me to the lovely world of Warhammer. At the time, I was kind of going through a different hyperfixation, so I was very unwilling to switch gears super quickly into another. But he slowly convinced me. He dragged me into the lore because he knew I would like the lore. I'm a lore guy. And I eventually discovered the beautiful place known as the Warhammer 40k Wiki, and I started just typing things in that I knew. And I slowly discovered Warhammer. I don't. That's kind of the jumping off point, and from there is all sorts of chaos. But where it kind of landed me, where I am now, is for those of you who know Warhammer in the audience, you'll kind of know where I'm coming from here. I am a Black Templars player. I love Alpha Legion, and I love diving into the lore of various different factions. One of my favorite events happen in the lore is actually the War in Heaven. I absolutely love that. That is a Necrons thing that we will probably get into. But yeah, that is the chaotic birth of my Warhammer journey.
Okay. Interesting. So, I guess I know next to nothing about Warhammer.
Sure.
So, what is, I guess, if you could just give me just a brief rundown of, like, what is it about? What do you do?
Sure. So Warhammer isn't necessarily one specific thing, as I'm sure you know. Warhammer is more than just video games. It's more than just books. It's more than just a tabletop game. It's a lot. It's a lot of things. It's books and animations, and it's word of mouth legends that aren't technically canon, but everyone pretends like they are.
Okay.
Warhammer is its own. It has a life of its own that I have struggled to find elsewhere because it is just so big and it's been around for so long that talking to different people about different parts of it give you a totally different view on the lore. Like at work. So I have a necklace on that is the Imperial Double Eagle, the Imperial Aquila. and someone at work was like, hey, I didn't know a servant of the Emperor worked here. And we just talked about Warhammer, and he has been playing it since it first came out. He's been growing up with Warhammer, which is a vastly different experience to me, who only started getting into it a couple of years ago. And bantering about it was a honestly rather eye-opening experience. I really enjoyed that conversation. I hope I run into that guy again.
Mhm.
But if you want to make it super basic, what is Warhammer? Warhammer is a sci-fi world trapped within it, trapped in darkness in every sense of the word. Everything, nothing really goes to the best case scenario, almost ever. And that's just the rules of the universe. Everything, it's not always necessarily the worst case scenario all the time, but it's never the best. There's always compromise. And that's the way the universe works, but if you want to go like super outside of that, Warhammer is a tabletop strategy game with books and TV shows and all sorts of things made about it, because yep. And this explanation is getting way more long-winded the more I add to it, so I'm gonna cut it off there.
Okay. Oh, I just got drunk. Well, while I get undisoriented, what is it like? What is it that's kind of attractive as far as like what sets it apart from other types of games, I guess?
Like,
you know, I guess I thought being like more than just being a you know, it is this, you know, multiple forgetting the terms, you know, there's more
multimedia
yeah
franchise.
yeah, that kind of thing.
What sets it apart? I think I would say I'm gonna compare it to something that we both have a pretty firm grasp on. I'm gonna compare it to Star Wars.
That was my first thought too. I was just like, okay, this would probably be kind of like Star Wars, at least in some level, just because there's a lot of different ways to engage with Star Wars as a franchise.
Yes, and I think it comes down to it really is the setting is really just so unique, I think. The setting of Warhammer is nuts, because if you go into Star Wars, right, and you go into, say, even if you go into like the Old Republic, or if you go into like the original extended universe post Return of the Jedi stuff, like with the Yuzhang Vong Wars and all that kind of stuff, or even if you go into like deeper Clone Wars lore, things usually have the same kind of feel. It's all still Star Wars. You can have all these different stories about like the pull of good and evil between like Jedi and Sith, or you can have like a smaller story of like the morality of clones, or you know how, you know, or just like a basic survival thing, like I'm trapped on this crazy world, how do I escape, right? Warhammer is just that, but bigger, and I think that describes Warhammer in general. Is everything is so extreme. It doesn't pull any punches anywhere. Things that suck really, really bad. Things that are cool are really, really cool. Things that are goofy are really, really goofy. That being because they stick out so much in the universe that surrounds them. But the point remains, everything is extreme, and thus nothing is. And everything just kind of fits.
Gotcha. So, I mean, like, I guess that's a good that's a good jumping off point to like talking about the lore, I guess. As far as I'm assuming the 40K relates to you know, the year, right?
Yes, it is indeed the year 40,000.
Okay.
Now we're getting into the year 41,000.
Oh, okay.
So we are approaching the 42nd millennium in Warhammer. But
Okay.
yeah.
What does that, I guess, entail as far as I know, like, a big thing about it is, my first note that I took is as far as the soul, like, as far as time is concerned, how do they keep track of time in this universe? Right, like, if it's 40,000 years in the future and this is a, you know, multi-planet spanning race, right, being humans, then how do they keep track of time is my first thought.
That is a oddly specific question.
That's just kind of my first thought, is like, we got to get fundamental. How does you know,
I'm gonna fact check this.
Oh, okay.
But I'm pretty sure it just goes off of Earth.
Okay.
Whatever year it is on Terra is the year it is everywhere, I believe.
Gotcha. I'm not saying that that's a cop-out, but I am saying that it'd be a lot cooler if there was a much more thorough way of, like, how they keep track of time. Because, I mean, like, as soon as, I mean, well, when we think about...
Wiki page on this.
Oh, really? Of course there is.
The imperial dating system of the Imperium of Man, also known as the Imperial Calendar, is fairly complex in nature, like everything. And has been structured so as to deal with the vast amount of recorded history that exists in the 41st millennium and the massive distances between settled human worlds, which can lead to long periods of isolation. Also, the vagaries and time warping effects of the warp, oh boy, we get to talk about the warp, can make it almost impossible to keep accurate track of time over long journeys. Imperium has developed its own method of recording dates, which needs a bit of explanation. Most importantly, the years are always in AD, the numbering system of our own present-day Gregorian calendar, so the dates themselves are the ones that we are familiar with now. The typical date, as scholars write it, should look something like 0.123.456.M41. This date can be divided up so that each part is explained separately below. The last number, the M41, is the millennium we're in, so 41st millennium, year 40,000. Then the number before it, the 456, is the specific year, and then it goes to. It's weird. Basically, all you really need from this is the last two numbers, which is the year and then the millennium. So the hundreds place and the thousands place is all you really need.
Gotcha. Yeah, the main reason why I ask is just because when it comes to just, you know, we're reaching a point where it's like, how are we going to keep track of time if we're going to start moving to, you know, like, people want to start moving to Mars? How are we going to keep track of time if, I mean, a soul on Mars is different in relation to a day on Earth? And I'm sure on Earth we'll still be like, okay, yeah, 24-hour period, why would we change that up? But on Mars, they're going to have to effectively redefine how all of that even works.
Right. The check number refers to the accuracy of a given date. So they have a number that being like, this is probably an accurate number. So if it's a class 0 or 1, it's either it occurred on Earth, so we know it's accurate, or it occurred somewhere in the solar system of Earth, the Sol system, so it's fairly accurate. Then 2 is for an event that date records were in direct psychic contact with the Sol system, so they're, other than like psychic interference, it's going to be fairly accurate. 3 is indirect, the source for the event that date records indirectly is close to source, which is not so corroborated. What's the worst one? A class 9 check number. Approximation for when worlds using a non-imperial calendar must reference an event in that world's history. Anyways, so yes, the imperial dating system is far more complex than I thought it was. You see, that's one thing about Warhammer. You're always learning. You never know it all.
Mhm.
Like, I didn't again, my original estimation was like, oh yeah, it's just whatever year it is on Earth, which is technically the case.
Mhm.
But then you have all these numbers that are like, oh, what if it happened in this other solar system? Okay, then you have a specific number in the date that says there might be a variation of 5 to 10 years on this.
Gotcha.
Oh yeah, and then there's this. For record keeping, this system is not generally used by Imperial citizens or in everyday life, but simply for the administrative use of the Minister. So, all these complicated numbers aren't. You don't throw that on your homework as a kid. That's the long form is only used by like scribes and scholars and historians on Earth and whatnot.
Gotcha. Okay.
All right.
So then another big question, which again getting into fundamental stuff, but this one's probably easier. How does interplanetary travel work?
Interplanetary travel.
You mentioned warp, so I'm assuming it has something to do with warp.
Yes, the warp is a place that isn't a place. So okay, when we talk about warp travel or faster than light travel, usually we talk about warp travel. That is like using hyperspace, except if hyperspace was a place.
Okay.
So the warp is also called the Empyrean, or the Immaterium, which is the word I'll be focusing on here. The Immaterium, right? You have the Materium, or the material plane, which is all the things you can touch, you can see, you can feel. And then there's the Immaterium, or the warp. And that is where emotions are. That's where souls are. That's where the Chaos Gods live, and it's where demons live. In order to do faster than light travel, you bust open a hole out of reality, basically, into the Immaterium. You fly through the Immaterium, and then you bust out of the Immaterium to where you want to be. Is the extremely simplified answer. There's a lot of different things you have to do while you're in the warp, like have a Geller field, which is a field to keep demons out of your ship, and to protect all your psychers. Psychers being people who can tap into the warp. I should actually go a bit in depth on this. So, you got the warp. It is the Sea of Souls. Basically everyone, I'll talk about the Tau in a minute. Everyone has an imprint on the warp, right? And that's your soul. Some people have a bigger imprint on the warp and can manipulate the warp. And if you can manipulate the warp, you are a psyker. Congratulations. There are also some people who have no presence in the warp, and those are called psychic nulls. They're weird. But we'll talk about them later. So psychers can directly influence the warp, right? And there's a mutation of people. I think they're technically psychers, called navigators, and these navigators are able to find their way around in the warp, usually by the use of a thing called the Astronomicon, which is on Earth. And navigators can basically, while they're in the warp, they have a literal third eye, and they use that third eye to see the Astronomicon, and from there they can orient themselves anywhere in the galaxy and guide the ship to where they want to be. So the way interplanetary travel works, back to your question, is you have a ship and it goes into the warp, the Immaterium. Boom. Your navigator looks at the Astronomicon, it looks at Earth, where it knows it should be. And it guides the ship, it guides the pilots, it guides the systems to go to where it knows the planet to be in relation to the Astronomicon.
Okay.
The time spent in the warp and the time spent in the Materium are not the same. Evidently, as we were talking about time dilation in the Imperial dating system. that can come in the form of either you jump forward in time a bunch, you spend a lot of time in the warp, but none passes for you, and you arrive in the place where you want to be like 1,000 years later. Or it can be you travel back in time, and you travel 100 years ago, and you leave before, or you arrive before you even left. Warp is really, really weird, and I want to say that a lot of this like super trippy stuff doesn't happen a bunch, but by the scale of Warhammer, it probably happens all the time. It only happens to our main characters when it's plot relevant. But yeah, usually traveling through the warp, even though it's super dangerous, is way faster than doing sunlight travel across the stars. Other than the Tau don't have warp travel. They just do sublight travel between worlds. It takes them a really long time. I think, unless I'm wrong. I'm gonna fact check myself so that all the Tau players out there are like, what? How dare you lie?
Sorry, I'm
Yes.
just in the middle of a fight.
Yes.
Oh man, I'm a horrible shot.
Here we
That
go.
was such a baby thing to do. I literally just stood there and fought her. Okay.
Okay, here we go. So, because the Tau lack Psychers, that's right, the Tau have such a small imprint on the warp, the demons don't see them. That's another thing. If you're a Psyker and you have a big imprint on the warp, demons think you're really tasty and they want to eat your soul.
Oh,
Not
fun.
Yes, very. But the Tau, they have such a small presence in the warp that no, demons don't really see them. So they are chilling. But that also means that they have no Psychers, which is womp womp. So they are incapable of fully entering the warp. However, as I'm reading here, based on duplicating the warp drive of an unknown alien vessel, they have found a way of diving towards the warp, extending the field of their drive into a wing-shaped design to hold their vessel in the warp before being hurled into real space again, like a ball held underwater and then released. While this is much slower, by a factor of 5 when compared to Imperial jump speed, it is a lot safer because they do not enter the warp deep enough to become exposed to any of its dangers. It is also much more predictable as their speed works out to a consistent rate. Nevertheless, this limited form of warp travel has resulted in the Tau Empire being closely packed around their home system. Then we have the Webway. The Webway. Okay, so here we go. We'll get into like the nitty-gritty of interplanetary travel. A short jump can be carried out by calculating the ship's projected course, corrective maneuvers, and approximate journey time, and the exit point before it starts the warp drive. While the ship is still in real space, its warp drive has the ability to monitor that part of the warp corresponding to the ship's current position, and observe how the warp is going. But this monitoring can only be done from real space, which means this type of jump is inherently unpredictable, as it relies on the warp currents not changing once the ship is in flight. Once inside the warp, there is no longer a way those movements can be detected, and all the ship can do is carry on blindly until it emerges in real space and hope it arrived in the planned location. Generally safe distance for this type of jump is 4 to 5 light years. So there's two ways: a calculated jump, which I just said, or a piloted jump, which is, I think, what I described earlier, which navigators, yes. Longer jumps of up to 5,000 light years can be done by steering a ship through the currents of the warp. Only human mutants known as navigators can do this, as they have the ability to look upon the warp without going mad from exposure to it. Yippee! Within the warp, they can sense the Astronomicon, a powerful psychic homing beacon. Centered on Terra. Yes, the Astronomicon is powered by the Emperor. And it helps ships move around. It helps the navigators see. Which is very, very cool. I was actually... Astronomicon is wild. It better not turn off. Well, I mean, there's part of the galaxy that actually can't see it anymore. There's a giant tear in reality known as the Great Rift, and anything on the other side of it can't see the Astronomicon. So they have to find their own way around, and I don't remember what that is. Hold on. Imperium Nihilus. Words. There we go. Imperium Nihilus, also known as the Dark Imperium, was the name given to the half of the Imperium isolated from Terra. Also known as the Cicatrix Maledictum. That's very fun way to say the Great Rift. Yep. Okay. Anyways. I knew that. Okay. Moving on from interplanetary travel. What other questions do we got?
Well, I mean, the big things that I wanted to just get squared away first was how does time work, and or like, you know, how do we keep track of time, and how do we keep track of how we move in space? So I guess now we can start getting into the, like, actual like lore.
Lore?
Yeah, story lore, definitely. My first thought being seems like a lot of this revolves around some emperor.
Yes, the Emperor of Mankind. Alright, we're gonna dive into... So there's this guy called the Emperor. And the reason... You've probably seen a lot of the jokes about, like, when someone starts talking about Warhammer, they immediately mention this guy called the Emperor. And there's a very good reason for that. And it's because he is extremely pivotal to a lot of the lore, even lore that doesn't really have to do with humanity. The Emperor of Mankind is... His origin is debated now in canon, but I like one certain one, so I'm gonna say that that one's the real one. Essentially, a very, very long time ago, in what is now modern-day Turkey, there were a bunch of human shamans. I think, I want to say 12 of them. And these shamans used all their fun shaman powers, and they combined all their souls into one vessel. And that vessel was born, and he was the Emperor.
Okay.
Now, not only were these shamans just extremely powerful psychic beings, but they were also dedicated to the protection of humanity. So all of their psychic powers of all these shamans are combined into the body of the Emperor, and so is their will to protect and advance humanity.
Gotcha.
So now the Emperor is born. He has these crazy psychic powers. He is a being that is known as a perpetual, which means you are immortal to the point where you can, like, regenerate from dying. Like, let's say there's a perpetual and you blow his brains out with like a Glock. You just blam, shoot him, and he dies. And then his brain reconstitutes itself and he stands back up. It's more than Wolverine. It's more than just a healing factor, because perpetuals can fully well and die and then come back.
Oh, okay.
Like, you can incinerate them, but as long as there is something to regenerate from, anything, an atom, they'll come back.
Gotcha.
I think that's how crazy that is. There are ways to kill perpetuals, very specific weapons, but yes. Anyways, so we have the Emperor. He's an extremely strong psyker. He's a perpetual, and he has the innate drive to protect and advance humanity.
Okay.
And so he does from the shadows, right?
Gotcha.
He I don't know if any of this is canon anymore. I don't know if this is someone's headcanon that they dramatized and I latched onto a long time ago and still remember it and think it's canon. But I'm pretty sure this is canon. And if it's not, that's okay. Because a lot of Emperor canon has been reversed or retconned or whatever, so it doesn't really matter.
Mhm.
But the point of this part of the lore is to build up the mysticism. So the Emperor guided humanity from the shadows at first, appearing as different people in history and always fading away. Like people named, I don't know, Moses, Jesus, like a lot of historical figures or like religious figures like Prophet Muhammad, all these different people he would appear as and guide humanity towards a certain goal or make them do a certain thing. There's an old story where the emperor is actually at the Tower of Babel, which was a chaos thing, which is interesting. And then he wanted to study it, and then his friend, another perpetual, yeah, that's right, the emperor has friends. Another perpetual was like, no, chaos bad, and stabbed him, and then ran away. And the emperor was like, oh, my friend stabbed me, I should probably stop. But anyways, the emperor grows in his knowledge and in his wisdom and in his racism. Essentially, the emperor decides that the humanity's birthright is the galaxy. The galaxy belongs to humanity as its birthright. That chaos is real but dangerous. Gods are not real. And things must and everything must, you know, humanity must go forward and be the best it can be. And eventually humanity goes into its golden age, which has a very ironic name, the Dark Age of Technology.
Okay.
The Dark Age of Technology is humanity's brightest hour. They have things called STLs, which are perfect blueprints and component blueprints of crazy machines, of buildings, of a lot of different things. And AI is super prominent. They have AI guiding their ships. There are no navigators at this point. AI guides their ships. And there's like cryo sleep. There's no warp travel at this point. Humanity does not know of the warp. The warp is not in the public consciousness. There's cryo sleep and AI and STLs. And humanity, they go onto this world. They have their men of iron, which are these robot warriors, go out, wipe out any opposition on the world. Then the colonists use STLs to build massive cities on these worlds. And boom, the world goes from barren to cyberpunk in decades. And humanity thrives. The Warhammer's tagline is that like that the Imperium of Man spans across 1 million worlds, and I honestly think that's an understatement.
Okay.
Humanity spread everywhere. They were rampant. They just spread, and they kept going, and they kept going, and they kept going. And no one really paid them any mind of the other alien races. Either got destroyed by the Men of Iron, got out of their way, thought they were beneath them, whatever. Until a horrendous thing happened, known as the Age of Strife. Or Dark Knight. Now, the Age of Strife is when Psykers started appearing. Humans started kind of developing into Psykers naturally. And demons were like, ooh, yummy. So let's say you're chilling on a human world. A very common type of world is a hive world, which is basically you have a city, and that city is basically like 100 cities all stacked on top of each other. And these hive cities are massive population centers with billions of people living in just one of them. And you have a bunch of different hive cities all across this hive world, and you have a planetary governor who kind of sits at the top and tells these people what to do. And let's say one person is born as a psyker. One person among billions of people on this world. And a demon comes. And he's like, ooh, yummy soul. And possesses that person. Now you have a psychic conduit to a bunch of demons on this planet with billions of people on it. Uh-oh. So now there's demons flooding on this world, and one person, one psyker, has caused the death of billions. Trillions even. So, psykers become extremely feared. Psykers become like pariahs. And they start kind of banding together for safety. And then more demons come. And it is a mess. At this point, the AI also revolted. So AI is kind of gone. And humanity starts descending from its glory. Its peak was in the Dark Age of technology, and now everything is rumbling. AI has gone rogue. Psykers are appearing and consuming worlds with demonic energy invasions. Everything's going to crap, and it gets to the point where on Earth, it went from this paradise to there are these people called techno-barbarian kings, which is basically people cybernetically augment themselves as much as they can. They fight each other for dominance, and they say, if you're not on my side, you die. And they take as much territory as they can, and Earth is split. It is... Now there is war raging between these techno-barbarian kings as a million human worlds all become isolated. Over the course of a few hundred years, humanity collapses. And it is at that point where the Emperor and all of his funky, fresh, perpetual friends decide that it's time to come out of the shadows. And thus, the Emperor decides to show everybody what his favorite hobby is. Bioengineering. Genetic manipulation. He is the world's... He is a biochemist at the end of the day. Everyone loves the Emperor for that. But anyways. So the Emperor, now looking at... Humanity was at its peak, and now this is where it's at. And he decides the first step is to unite Earth. So how does he do that? Well, he takes the strongest, most aggressive warriors he can who will rally with him, and he turns them into super soldiers.
Okay.
And these are
The space.
not Space Marines. These
What?
are the...
Oh wait, yeah, they're the leaders of the Space Marines. They're like his sons,
Not yet.
right?
Not
Okay.
yet. We'll get to the Primarchs.
I was so excited to know things.
These are the Thunder Warriors.
Ah.
Now, the Thunder Warriors are extremely aggressive, extremely powerful warriors. And with their help, they reunite Terra. There's also another project that the Emperor's working on called the Custodes. The Adeptus Custodes are... You take someone and you... Like, imagine if you had a person and every single cell of theirs was the best version of it. They don't just have good bones, they have the best bones. They don't just have good organs, they have the best organs. The best muscles, the best reflexes, the best everything. They have been genetically over-engineered to the point where they are the best. And then their armor is the best.
Yeah.
Their weapons are the best. So you have these Thunder Warriors and you have the Custodes. Once Earth is reunited, the Emperor decides that it's time for a change of pace. And he begins working on the Primarchs, and he begins working on the Space Marines. And in the meantime, the Custodes wipe out the Thunder Warriors. Because they couldn't be controlled enough. They were too aggressive. So they get deleted, essentially. So then, yes, let's talk about the Primarchs. The Emperor created 20 genetic sons. And they each had a different aspect of him in them. I could go in depth on the Primarchs, but then we'd be here forever. But there's some dispute as to you know, how they got so powerful. I believe the prevailing theory is the Emperor went to a world called Moloch. And on this world, he made a deal with the Chaos Gods. And he said that he would do something, but in return, he got 20 minor chaos entities. Minor chaos gods. Not full chaos gods like the big four, but little ones. Little tiny, uber powerful entities. And he put them inside the Primarchs. That's the prevailing theory. I don't know if that has been confirmed as canon. I hope so, because that's really cool. But anyways, so we have the Primarchs. And I said there was 20 of them. We only know about technically 19. Now, two of the Primarchs have been completely wiped from Imperial records. They did something so heinous that they were killed, their legions were folded into the other legions of Space Marines, and all records of their names, their deeds, all of it wiped from history. The out-of-canon reason for the in-canon, there is no explanation. The out-of-canon reason is so that fans can make their own Primarchs, make their own history, which I think is really cool. Which is why it's always super interesting when there is Lost Primarch lore, but I don't think we should have any, because it's for there to be space for other for creators to do their thing. But we know about the remaining 18, except before I said 19, and that's because, oops, one of the Primarchs split into twins. And the reason why that is because just before the Primarchs were about to be born, the mother of the Primarchs realized that her children were going to be used as just these warlords. And she was given these kind of visions of what their futures would be, and so she helped the Chaos Gods scatter the Primarchs. So instead of all of the Primarchs being born on Terra and being kind of being raised by the Emperor and being the Imperium's finest warriors from the get-go, they got scattered to all these different worlds. And during the warp travel, one of the souls of the Primarchs split in two. And so we had two Primarchs instead of one. And that is Alpharius and Omegon, the Primarchs of the Alpha Legion, which is my favorite legion. I will get into them later. But yeah, they are they are beautiful. But the Primarchs, as we know them, are Lionel Johnson, in order of Legion order. So the Primarch of the First Legion, or the Dark Angels, is Lionel Johnson. The Second Legion, is erased. The 3rd Legion, the Emperor's Children, is Fulgrim. The 4th Legion is the Iron Warriors, that's Perturabo, is their Primarch. The 5th Legion is the White Scars, and their Primarch is Jagatai Khan. The 6th Legion is the Space Wolves, which is Leman Russ. 7th is the Imperial Fists with Rogel Dorn. The 8th is the Night Lords with Conrad Kurz. I love Conrad. The 9th Legion is Sanguinius and his Blood Angels. Oh, Sanguinius. He's honestly one of my favorite characters in Warhammer, just period. 10th Legion is the Iron Hands with Ferrus Manus. The 11th Primarch is one of the Lost Primarchs. The 2nd and 11th. The 12th Legion is the World Eaters with Angron. The 13th Legion is the Ultramarines with Rabute Gilliman. We got the Death Guard on 14 with Mortarion as their Primarch. The Thousand Sons are 15 with Magnus the Red. 16 is the Luna Wolves, or the Sons of Horus. And guess what the name of their Primarch is?
I have no clue.
Horus, that's right.
I was thinking it'd be Horus, but I didn't want to just sound like an idiot by guessing.
No, it is Horus. Horus Lupercal.
Okay.
Then we have 17 with Lorgar Aurelian over the Word Bearers. I hate Lorgar! Well, actually, Lorgar is just kind of dumb. The real guy I hate is Erebus. I freaking hate that guy. Anyways, we'll get into that. And then we have our beautiful Salamanders with Vulcan. That is the 18th Legion. And then we have the 19th Legion is the Raven Guard with Corvus Corax. And then, of course, the 20th Legion is Alpha Legion with Alpharius Omegon. Anyways. Right. So, all that being said, in that long-winded introduction, the Emperor guides humanity through its golden age, watches its downfall, and proceeds to begin its new golden age. He reunites Terra, eliminates the Thunder Warriors, and he now has his Primarchs. And from the Primarch's DNA, he makes the 20 Legions of Space Marines. 2 of those get folded into the others, so you have 18 Legions of Space Marines. And each Legion, you know, their DNA is from their Primarch. So if you are an Ultramarine, if you're from the 13th Legion, you have the blood of Rabute Gilliman running through your veins. If you're a 10th Legion, Iron Hands, Ferrus Manus, you have his DNA in you. 20th Legion, you have Alpharius's DNA in you. You have his gene seed, which is fun. Anyways, so the Primarchs are scattered, but the Space Marines are still there. So the Emperor begins the Great Crusade. And the Great Crusade is basically this monumental push to reunite all of the lost human worlds and bring them under the banner of the Emperor so that we could have a new golden age of humanity. And the first step was finding all the Primarchs. So the Legions, they go out and they're uniting all these worlds, and slowly we're picking up Primarchs on the way. And the Primarchs come and they lead their Legion. But eventually, the Emperor goes, "Alright guys, I need to go back to Terra. I have something really important I need to work on. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but it's super important. I trust you guys. I'm putting Horus in charge of the military. He is the new War Master of humanity. Okay, bye." And the Emperor dips. Now Horus is in charge of all the Primarchs and all the Legions. And he doesn't do so great at first. And eventually what happens is our swanky little guy that I mentioned earlier, Erebus, from the Word Bearers, corrupts Horus. He and Lorgar work together and they corrupt Horus towards chaos. And then we have probably an event that you have heard of before, known as the Horus Heresy.
I've heard of this, yes.
So, basically, the Primarchs all get split onto sides. You have 9 loyal Primarchs and 9 traitor Primarchs. And Horus Heresy is messy and long and convoluted, and I don't know all of it because it is a huge. When did Horus Rising come out? Horus Rising is a book that came out in 2006, right? That was the first book of the Horus Heresy series. The End and the Death, Part 2. Or is it Part 3? Hold on. The End and the Death. There we go. Volume. Oh, this is Volume 1. But there's a second one. Anyways, The End of the Death. Oh yeah, it's Volume 3. So The End of the Death, Volume 3, the last book in the Horus Heresy. You want to know when that came out?
When?
Hold on, wait. How dare you not give me your frickin' date? Hold on. Oh, The End. How dare you? It's between 2 years, and I'm trying to make sure I have it correct.
Are you watching the stream, by the way, Daniel?
I am not. I'm currently fact-checking myself. Yeah, There we go.
Gotcha.
The End and the Death, Volume 3, was published January 30th of 2024.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So that's how long the Horus Heresy series has been going on. Here we go.
There we go. That way you won't have to tune into the stream, but just look at this guy. That is a
wow.
sad day. Who needs scissors that large?
That is a good question. So anyways, the Horus Heresy series has been going on for a very long time, and there is no way that I would know all of the lore, because I don't think anyone knows all of it, other than maybe the guy who wrote it. But basically, if you really get down to brass tacks, the very, very basics is Horus and his traitor Primarchs, his fellow traitor Primarchs, wage war against the Emperor and the loyalist Primarchs, and they fight until eventually the traitors push the loyalist forces all the way back to Holy Terra, where there's a final epic showdown between the Emperor himself and Horus on Horus's flagship, the Vengeful Spirit, where Horus gets deleted from reality. He's gone. His soul is deleted. The Emperor gets mortally wounded. And Sanguinius is dead. Rip. I'll rip our Hawk boy. And Rogel Dorn is depressed. Well, everyone's depressed at the end of the Horus Heresy. No one is happy. But yeah, there was a lot of casualties during the Horus Heresy, even among the Primarchs. Ferrus Manus, the Primarch of the 10th Legion, died basically at the start. Conrad Kurz died. Alfarius died. Sanguinius died. So many deaths. But eventually, and then there's kind of like the at the end of movies where there's like the still shot of the character, and then there's like what ended up happening to them.
Yeah.
So among different like blurbs in codexes or books, you kind of figure out what happened to the different Primarchs, and essentially the traitor Primarchs kind of yeet themselves into a place called the Eye of Terror, and the loyalist Primarchs either get super depressed and they die, or they follow the traitor Primarchs into the Eye of Terror and are never seen again. And by never seen again, we mean aren't seen until the writers decide to add them back in.
Of course.
Which will be someday.
Someday soon, we hope.
Someday soon, indeed. So from the Horus Heresy, there are a lot of other events that happen. There's the smaller events, obviously. There's the War of the Beast, which is where an orc who is like freaking crazy. He does his thing. He has to. The Vulcan like throws him into a reactor or something. I don't know. War of the Beast is weird. You get the Black Crusades, which is where Abaddon the Despoiler, who is one of Horus's underlings, he kind of took over his legion, and Abaddon is able to 13 different occasions is able to unite all of the Chaos Legions somehow and have them do a specific goal. And the worst one is the most recent one, which was the 13th Black Crusade, where Horus broke a planet, or not Horus, Abaddon broke a planet, a really important one. It's called Cadia. Cadia's gone, rip. And that is what caused the Great Rift, which cut off half the Imperium from the Astronomicon we were talking about earlier. That's a lot of Imperium history. There's a lot of other factions that I haven't really touched on, like the Eldar, Dark Eldar, Necrons, the Tyranids, the Leagues of Votann. I did talk about the Tau briefly. Am I forgetting anyone? Am I making anybody mad by not mentioning the Gene Sealers, I guess? That's just a sub-faction of the Tyranids. And then, of course, Chaos Demons, all that jazz. Yeah, Warhammer is immense. Like, I've been yapping. I've been chatting away for almost an hour now, and we've barely scratched... Well, we've scratched the surface.
All I said was, who's the Emperor?
You said, who's the Emperor? And I've been talking for like 45
Well, you
minutes.
see, son.
Yeah. The Emperor, to get back to your original question, the Emperor is an incredibly powerful psyker who led humanity through much of its history, and is now sitting on the Golden Throne in a really semi-phase between being alive and being dead.
Gotcha.
Because people don't let him die because they don't know that he's a perpetual, I guess. Because if they just let him die, he would come back. He's a perpetual. But instead, he's just sitting on this golden throne, powering the Astronomicon, and keeping the webway closed, which is very important. Yeah, that was the whole thing. The war in the webway, that was happening. Ugh. Anyways. So, any more questions to steer the conversation somewhere else?
Give me just a second. Oh, I just heard a dude and I was not prepared because I'm not looking at the computer. So, we've got the Emperor, and I know you've kind of spilled into it, but what about, like, the various factions in this universe? What are the factions like? Because I assume it's more than just humans.
Oh, yes. It is far more than just humans. The reason why I've been talking about humans a lot is because when you talk about the Emperor, you talk about humans. And the writers focus on humans a lot because we're humans, and we like to root for our people. And even though there are technically no good guys in the Warhammer setting, usually people end up rooting for humans because we are humans. And, yeah. If you really wanted to look for good people in the Warhammer universe,
I'm sorry, my guy just tanked a shotgun to the face.
Yes, he did. I'm not sure how he did that.
I don't know. This is just fun. Sneak up behind him and boom! How are you alive?
He got you right in the butt.
I don't get it.
Well, who knows? Anyways.
That's okay.
So different factions. I've talked about the Space Marines a lot. I've talked about the Custodes a little. But let's do humanity first to get them out of the way, because I want to talk about the other factions and give them their time in the light. So I'll briefly go over the other human factions. There is the good old boys of humanity, which is the Astra Militarum, which is just regular human soldiers. In a world full of superhumans and crazy robots and crazy aliens, there's the Astra Militarum, the soldiers of the there is the Inquisition, and their agents. If you're an Inquisitor, you suck, unless you're Eisenhorn, I guess. But Inquisitors are like I don't know how to explain them. They're so okay. An Inquisitor innately is someone who is trying to save the Imperium from itself, right? So you have Inquisitors. You have a few different branches of Inquisitors. The main three are the what's the word I'm looking for? Not like the branch, but the Order. So there's the Order Malleus, which is a branch of the Inquisition that deals with like demons. There's the Order Xenos, which is the order that deals with aliens. There's the Order Hereticus, which deals with people in the Imperium who have strayed from the doctrines of the Imperium.
Kind of figured with that one.
Yes.
Hereticus.
What's interesting is the doctrines of the Imperium have changed since the Emperor was interred on the Golden Throne. If you remember before, the Emperor said, gods aren't real, chaos is dangerous, humanity is super cool. Now it's the Emperor is God, is a big one. The ordinary person will worship the Emperor as God, basically. There's actually a huge branch of humanity that is like, it's literally the Adeptus Ministorum, which is just the Church of the Emperor, basically. And the reason they do this is because it works. Praying to the Emperor does grant some benefits somehow. You just fireball them or something.
Yeah, I mean, he's a fireball, or throws bombs at me, so let's see how he likes exploding.
You know, that's very fair. But yeah, so being a heretic is such a weird thing in Warhammer, because things that were completely normal back during the Great Crusade era, like saying the Emperor isn't a god, he is a man, a very powerful man, but a man, would get you killed in the 45th War. The Emperor himself said, I'm not a god. I am, I am a psyker, but I am a human.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you said that now, instantly put into you'd either get executed or put into a re-education camp.
Horny jail.
Yeah, for sure. There's the Sisters of Battle which are women wearing power armor, and they blow people up. They also hate heretics. They are basically the military branch of the Ordo Hereticus. There's also like the military branch of the Ordo Malleus and the Order Xenos, but those are different chapters of Space Marines.
Mm-hmm.
But they're weird. Like the Death Watch isn't its own chapter of Space Marines. They pull members of the Death Watch from like every chapter of Space Marines, who really don't like aliens, and then they make them study how to best kill aliens and be the best alien killers ever. And then they do that. And then there's the Grey Knights, who are the ultimate demon killers. And yeah, but those are different Space Marines. The Grey Knights, so you know how I was saying earlier that each Space Marine, they have the gene seed of their prime rank, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, Grey Knights, their gene seed is the Emperor's gene seed.
Okay.
So they are like mega. They're really cool, I would say. They're a little. They've had some weird lore. Like there was a time where the primary lore of the Grey Knights was they're a super secretive organization, so no one can know they exist. Therefore,
This is so unfair.
any human who sees them gets executed for seeing them.
Mm-hmm.
Even other, I think it was even other Space Marines as well. But yeah, it was. That was weird, Lord. That's not the case anymore, though. That got retconned. Now you can just, you know.
Sorry, I wasn't paying full attention because I had an impossible hack, and that made me a little upset.
I see. Okay, very quickly, I'll re-summarize my point.
Okay.
Grey Knights, it used to be where if you saw them in action, you get executed. Because the reason the Grey Knights are out and about is because there's demons. And demons are technically a super secretive thing anyways, and you're not allowed to know that demons exist, and you're especially not supposed to know that the Imperium has a super secret fighting force to fight demons. So if you see a Grey Knight, you get executed, or you get brainwashed, or you get memorized, or whatever. Which, understandably, some people thought was really dumb, because judging by that logic, let's say you're a member of the Astra Militarum, and you're fighting strongly, and all of a sudden you see horrors beyond your wildest dreams. And all of a sudden, these really cool, knight-looking Space Marines come out of the woodworks and absolutely demolish these things. And you're like, whoa, thanks for helping me out, man. Wow, that was so cool. What chapter did you say you were a part of again? And they're like, we are the Grey Knights. And then you're like, I never heard of you guys before. And they're like, well, now you have. Bam! Then you die. Like, what? It's dumb. But
Oh, I'm
yeah,
an idiot.
luckily they changed that, and now it's not like, oh, you get executed if you see a Grey Knight, and now it's more like, if we think you've been corrupted by the demons you were fighting, you get arrested so we can make sure that you're not infested with demons. And if you're not, we mind wipe you so that you forget that you got tested for demons. But if you are, then you die, right? Anyways, that's enough about the Grey Knights. Deathwatch. Ultimate alien hunters. That's actually Deathwatch. One cool thing about them is you might be thinking, okay, so there's the Space Marines who left the Imperium during the Horus Heresy. What if some of them want to come back, right? What if some of them are like, man, screw Chaos, I like the Imperium better? Well, they can. They're known as Black Shields, and essentially what they do is they strip all of their armor of all their heraldry, and they paint it black, and then they go to the Deathwatch, and they go, I'm here to sign up. No questions asked, they are admitted in as an initiate. As long as you don't have, like, obvious Chaos taint. Like, unless you are, like, growing horns or have a crab arm, then no, you're a heretic. Get out of here, because that means you have accepted the gifts of Chaos. And if you accept the gifts of Chaos, you suck. But if you haven't accepted any gifts of Chaos and you want to come back to the Imperium, join the Deathwatch. Anyways, enough about Space Marines. We've talked about them enough. They are the poster boys of Warhammer, and we need to talk about other things. Talk about decision battle, talk about the stories, talk about the position. The Astra Militarum, I'll talk about that first. There's a lot of different legions or battalions of Astra Militarum as well. there is, I think, the most popular one, like outside of, like, usually when you think of like the Ashmetal Arm, there's two guard regiments that you think of. There's the Cadians, which are, they look like World War II soldiers basically. They have the green armor with like the beige under like shirts and stuff. And then there's the Death Corps of Krieg, and they're depressed.
They're just depressed.
Yeah, they're basically like the only way. Hold on, I know that they're depressed, but I don't remember why Krieg sucks so much. Krieg, the Imperial planet of Krieg, is a toxic radioactive death world. Oh, let's talk about death worlds for a second. Very, very, very fast. So when you think of a world, you'd think like, oh, a death world is a place that's inhospitable, right? A place where maybe there's not.
I would think either that or a place where people go to die.
So there's a difference between an uninhabitable world and a death world. And a death world is beyond inhospitable. It is the world itself, whether through its fauna or its flora or whatever, something about the world is out to get you. So if you are born on a death world, good luck, because your existence is now certain.
That is a sad
get
time.
off the world.
Maybe get off, yeah.
So, yes. Okay. Much of the early history that was once the hive world of Krieg in the segment of Asbestos is shrouded in rumor, allegory, and dark myth. Its dreadful history of rebellion and treachery has been obscured and lost in the mists of time. The once thriving hive world was a trading and manufacturing center that was populated by billions. Yet Krieg is now covered in a wilderness of ruined cities that span the poison-choked world. Bloated with wealth and corrupt with indolence, the former rulers of this world, the Council of Autocrats, was rife with petty vendetta and vice. The citizens of Krieg were ignorant of these slowly spiraling events, and the terrible ruin of the misrule of their leaders was about to bring down upon them. In the year 433 of the 40th millennium, the end came for Krieg in the form of the High Autocrat of Krieg's largest hive, the chairman of the Council of Autocrats and the de facto planetary governor, a man so hated that his name has been purged of all imperial records. He declared a planetary-wide martial law, and Krieg was now independent from the Imperium of May. So, yeah. So the Kriegsmen, basically, are warriors from the world of Krieg, right? The Death Corps of Krieg are from Krieg. And Krieg, at one point, seceded from the Imperium, which was a very bad idea. Because, then... Yeah, here we go. The Loyalists were on their own. The planetary defenses were under the traitors' control, and those defenses were strong enough that a full-scale fleet action would be required to breach them. Colonel Yurton, I'm gonna say Yurton, had been informed in no uncertain terms by the Segmentum Command that an Imperial fleet on the scale necessary to invade Krieg would not be forthcoming. His orders were to resist with all means at his disposal, to engage the enemy, and punish their treachery and emerge victorious, whatever the cost. Faced with the horrific odds stacked against him, Colonel Yurton came to the fateful decision that Krieg would either belong to the Emperor or to no one at all. Within a secret Adeptus Mechanicus storage facility located deep below Hive Barrowgrad, the Colonel, his loyal Adeptus Mechanicus ally, Archmagos Guriel, moved to unlock the facility and unleash the forbidden and ancient weapons within. On the day of the Feast of the Emperor's Ascension. Oh yeah, so when the Emperor got put on the Golden Throne, it kind of became a holiday of like, yay, the Emperor's on the throne. Yippee. So Feast of Emperor's Ascension. Yurton unleashed his long-planned counterattack using atomic weapons to enact a great cleansing of the planet's heretical population. The traitors watched helplessly as Yurton's ballistic missiles arced high into the planet's stratosphere atmosphere before detonating in blooms of blinding light and unleashing tons of lethal isotopes which blanketed the entire world in a deadly fallout. For days, Krieg was engulfed in a sea of nuclear fire. Krieg's already tainted and marginal ecosystem collapsed, and as a result, untold billions died due to raging fires blocking the sun and the nuclear winter that followed. Krieg became a man-made death world, trapped in the freezing grip of a radioactive nuclear winter. The bloody war of attrition continued to rage between the surviving secessionists and loyalist troops across the planet, where every inch of ground would eventually be littered with trenches, rusting razor wire, and shell craters, in a deadly landscape where drifting fallout ash shrouded the numberless bones of unburied dead. So, the Kriegsmen are people from the planet of Krieg, and they believe that the only way to atone for the fact that their planet once seceded is to die.
Hmm.
So they will do the craziest missions, do the craziest stuff, because if they live, glory to the Emperor. If they die, we have atoned for our sins.
Gotcha.
They are also very famous for hitting people with shovels. I'm gonna be honest, I don't know where that meme comes from, but the meme of having your trusty shovel is a thing. I'm gonna, let me see here. Oh, shovel. Okay, it's, hello? Orbs. Nope, that's Craig. I need Krieg. There we go. Where did the shovel come from? Wow, none of the wiki nor the lexicon can tell me where the shovels come from. Let's see if Google can tell me.
Okay then. Oh, poor little bouncer. Oh, is that a little girl? Oh, here it is.
Ah, I see. So, yeah. So the meme is, the Death Corps of Krieg can kill anyone with a shovel, or they exclusively fight with shovels. Which is obviously not true, but haha, funny meme. And basically it's just like a meme that comes from World War I imagery and like trench warfare, which is what the Kriegsmen are based off of, obviously from what we read.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just that. Okay, nothing too fancy. Anyways, moving on. What else shall we talk about, Legion-wise, or faction-wise, I should say. Let's talk about AdMech for a second. The Adeptus Mechanicus. The Adeptus Mechanicus is, they are, like, the technological engineers of humanity. They believe that the flesh is weak, and that, you know, what's better than organs and flesh and muscles and stuff? Cybernetics. And wires and computers. So they replace their arms with cybernetic arms, their legs with wheels or little clanky legs, or they replace their brains with computers, or whatever. They become less and less human and more machine.
Okay.
And they are the people who service the Imperium with, they're the ones who help make their weapons, they're the ones who make all of their computers, they're the ones who make all their vehicles. All of the machines, not just for war, like they don't just make guns for the Imperium, like just for like the Guard or the Space Marines, they also make, you know, blenders industrial pistons, freaking like computer chips for a personal iPad or whatever, right? Like if there was a monopoly on making technology, all of it, everything, all technology, every light bulb, every printer, everything, it comes down to the Adeptus Mechanicus made it. Sure, there are worlds that are like factory worlds and they like put pieces together, but the reason why they know how to make that stuff is because of the Adeptus Mechanicus. That's humanity, I believe. I don't think I'm leaving anybody out, unless we're gonna get like super specific into like Space Marine legions and chapters, which is my forte, is humanity, and Space Marines. So let's move into Chaos real fast. The big bad guys of 40k, because you can realistically root for most other factions within reason and say you're the good guy. Other than Chaos. Chaos is pretty much, yeah, you're good. So Chaos has 4 sub-factions. Well, 5. You have Khorne, who is the Blood God. That's where Blood God Skulls for the Skull Throne comes from. This is our best boy Khorne. He is, of course, the Blood God. There is Tzeentch, the Changer of Ways, the god of like schemes and knowledge and sorcery. There's Nurgle, the god of rot and disease and pestilence. And there is Slaanesh, the god of excess and pleasure and drugs and sex and those things.
I didn't realize I got him. Sorry. I was fighting a Big Daddy and I didn't realize that I got him as he got me, so that was pretty cool.
See, that was a child in there. That's
Yeah. You get to choose. Do you want to save them or harvest them? And I'd prefer to save them. Also, I'd prefer to save them because it ultimately benefits you throughout the whole game, so.
Ah, I see.
Yeah, it's a very fun game. And get out of here, child.
Don't shoot the child.
I didn't. That's why I shot next to the child.
Aha. Anyways, so. Now each of those chaos gods has their own demons, right? You have Nurgle, and he has his little little demons who go around spreading disease, and then he has like his greater demons, which are the great unclean ones, which are these massive walking piles of pestilence who like you just look in their mouth and there's just like maggots crawling around. They're disgusting. Khorne has his bloodthirsters, these massive hulking piles of muscle who cleave armies apart with giant swords or crush them with huge maces and fly with bat-like wings. There's Tzeentch and his, I think they're called, are they called Changers of Ways? His greater demons? I believe so. And they fly around doing crazy magic and stuff. And then there's Slaanesh, and he has his, what are Slaaneshi greater demons called? Greater, no. Hello? I guess there's demonettes, but those are like, is it a keeper of secrets? Is that what it is?
Not sure.
Yes. Keepers of secrets. huge, indescribable creatures whose very presence is capable of bringing the bravest warrior to their knees in anguish and ecstasy. They are the closest companions and servants of the Lord of Excess. They typically have 4 arms, 2 of which have human-like hands, and 2 tipped with huge crab-like claws decorated with brightly colored lacquers. A Keeper of Secrets is a very powerful foe in close combat. So then, and then you have Chaos Undivided. And essentially, that is either humans or demon princes who they worship chaos, but rather than worshiping just one chaos god, they worship all of them at the same time.
Huh. I don't know how that works. I mean, I guess, you know, in the nature of polytheism, I guess that's, like, a possibility, but, like...
It's extremely difficult because all of the chaos gods, like, hate each other. Rarely do they ever want to work together. The last time they worked together, they made the first demon ever, which was Be'lakor, the Dark Master. And he's really cool, I guess. I don't know a lot of his lore other than what I just said, which was the Chaos Gods worked together and they crowned the first demon, and that was Be'lakor. Technically he's in like an AOS thing, but he does exist in Warhammer 40k. Anyways, I'm getting off track. Was I ever on track, really?
I have no clue, man.
So, Chaos Undivided is essentially, yeah, everything you do, everything you say, and everything you think must be in line with all the Chaos Gods. You can, like, worship one a little more than the other as long as you immediately after bring up the others. It's like constantly making sure everything is balanced. That's what Horus did, is he was Chaos Undivided. He had all of the Chaos Gods rooting for him, technically. But yeah, Chaos Undivided also. Technically, there's like a 5th Chaos God, but he's not canon, as far as I know. His name is Malice, or his name is Malal, when you read. But that is, I don't remember what he's the Chaos God of. Oh, that's not how you spell anything ever. Malice is a renegade Chaos God. He is the god of anarchy. Also known as the Outcast God, the Lost God, or the Renegade God, Malice is the embodiment of Chaos's indiscriminate and anarchic tendency towards destruction, even of itself and its own agents. The nature of Malice's powers is parasitic, as the Renegade God grows in power only when the other ruinous powers do. Oh yeah, that's another word for the Chaos Gods, is the ruinous powers. Malice's sacred number is 11, and his favorite colors are black and white. Oh yeah, each of the Chaos Gods has a favorite number and a favorite color, which I think is really funny. Like, Khorne's favorite number is 8, and his favorite color is red. What's Nurgle's favorite number? I think it's... I'm gonna say it's 6. 7.
How are you? Okay, there we are. That took forever to die.
Its sacred color is brown and green. Oh, there's more descriptions on its favorite color. Putrid brown and vile green. Anyways.
Oh my gosh, little sister, get out of the way!
So, yeah, so the Chaos Gods, they're what they want is fairly self-explanatory. Oh yeah, Slaaneish's sacred number is 6. Yippee. So Yeah, chaos is fairly self-explanatory. Each god is the embodiment of an emotion. Technically, they are not a person or an entity. They are a collection of emotions and feelings. So Slaanesh isn't really a person. Slaanesh is the embodiment of the pursuit of excess, the pursuit of wanting more of everything. Wanting
Okay.
more pleasure, wanting more pain, wanting perfection, wanting hedonism and decadence and passion and like, you know, wanting more food, more music, more, all of that stuff. You want more, 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 more. All of it in equal measure. All the good stuff, all the bad stuff, all of it, all the time, every time. Korn wants blood. He doesn't care who dies. He doesn't care how. Well, he kind of cares how they die. As long as they're he cares not from whence the blood flows, only that it flows. So if you die as a Korn worshiper, if you die an honorable death, that's good still, because you are worshiping Korn because your blood has been spilled. Nurgle wants disease everywhere. Philosophically, it's because everyone does this. There is the it is the natural entropy of the universe, decay, and that's just how everything should be. The people who follow Nurgle are extremely happy, which is weird because they see they affectionately refer to Nurgle as Papa Nurgle or the grandfather, and he is this massive thing who is spreading his gifts of pestilence and disease everywhere. Then there's Tzeentch. No one really knows what Tzeentch wants. Tzeentch has plans built within plans, and then there's other plans, and those plans are actually sub-plans of the Great Plan, but the Great Plan is actually Plan B to his greatest plan. But his greatest plan is technically only one small link in the perfect plan, which is really just a you get what I mean. Tzeentch is just that. So the chaos is, so demons are just, you know, little pieces of the chaos. So it's just like a sprouting of that same emotion. And they work to do what their chaos patron wants. Unless they don't, and then, you know, things happen. Usually they don't do that, though. And then there's, like, humans who worship the chaos gods, or elves who worship the chaos gods, or orcs who worship the chaos gods. Whatever, right? Bunch of different races worshiping the chaos gods, and then they do whatever. So let's move on from chaos, and let's get into some of the Xenos races. Orcs, because I just mentioned them. Orcs are probably the only happy mortal race, because their society is built around and fighting, and being the strongest and the meanest, and the greenest. Orcs are passive, because they come from a long, long time ago. They come from 40 million years before the current setting, in a time called the War in Heaven. And basically, to summarize the War in Heaven very quickly, there were these, imagine if a bunch of people went to space frogs and asked those space frogs for eternal life because their lives were miserable. The space frogs were like, no. So the sad old people went and found people who ate stars and were made out of energy. So they found these energy people and were like, hey, energy people, can you beat up those space frogs and give us eternal life? And the space people were like, yes. And the way they gave them eternal life was turning them into skeleton robots. So the skeleton robots and the space people go to fight the space frogs. And the space frogs are like, uh-oh, and they make people to fight. They get a bunch of people to fight for them because they've been.
Light up those
Yeah,
to 1,000
there's the
degrees.
two main ones
Light
are
bread.
really cool magic users and really strong physical warriors. Eventually the metal skeletons betray the space energy star-eating people
Mm-hmm.
and then go to sleep. The really cool magic users, they run away from the punchy, fighty guys and go into space and hang out in giant spaceships. What I have just described in the most basic of terms is the War in Heaven and the origins of the Eldar, the Orcs, and the Necrons. The Eldar were the cool magic users, the Orcs were the fighty people, the physical fighty people, and the Necrons are the robot skeletons. The Orcs, their entire reason for existing, they were genetically modified by the Space Frogs, or the old ones, to be warriors, to fight people. So when the war was over and the Eldar kind of ran away to their craft worlds, they didn't have anyone to fight, so they fought each other. And they slowly got diminished from what they once were because they lacked proper fight. A proper crumpin'. So they went from these beings known as Krorks to just orcs.
Gotcha.
And these orcs are the comic relief of the Warhammer universe sometimes, and other times they are the terrifying, brutal warriors of the 41st millennium. Because they are really goofy. It's a bunch of like roided up dude bros hanging out, trying to figure out how to do war, except everyone's dumb. But everything works. It's really, one of the prevailing memes is if an orc believes it, it comes true. Which is technically not true, but to explain how it actually works ruins the magic. So I will just say this. Orcs, whatever they believe comes true. And they believe that painting cars red makes that car go faster. So when they paint a car red, it actually goes faster.
Oh, nice.
They believe that anything painted yellow will blow up better. So they paint their rocket launchers yellow, and guess what? It
They blow
explodes
up better. Wow.
They believe that if you paint anything purple, it's stealthier. Because have you ever seen a purple orc?
I've never seen a purple orc.
No? Yeah, no one's ever seen a purple orc. So paint that bad boy purple and you'll sneak right past them. And guess what? It works.
It works.
It works. There's a lot of different color, like orc color theory of paint it this way, this thing happens, which is really fun. And like breaking down how it works is just not as fun as just I paint it this way, thus it works. So I will just say I paint it this way and thus it works. So orcs, they also have these bad boys called squigs, which are just mouths on legs, essentially. They are like, I struggle to find a comparison in real life. Imagine if your main source of food was a bunch of attack dogs, but you also like sent those attack dogs into battle with you. And then there's also, what are they called? Gretchen, which imagine a tiny little goblin boy just hanging out. Yeah, those are Gretchen. So there's the Gretchen who get bullied by the orcs because they're not as cool as the orcs. And then there's the squigs who are just like animals. So you got the Gretchen, squigs, and the orcs, and they're all hanging out in their cool orc communities, and they go around looking for a good fight. And that's orcs, baby. I find the orcs incredibly fascinating because if you look at them from the outside, they're just like, orcs from fantasy settings, but in the future. And yeah, that's a basic look at it, but they're fun. Alright. Next, I'll do the space elves because there are two factions of them. There's the Eldari and there's the Drukari. The Drukari, they worship Slaanesh to make sure Slaanesh doesn't eat their souls. And there's a reason for that, and it's because the elves made Slaanesh happen. Basically, after the War in Heaven, and after they kind of ran away from the Quarks, the Eldar were the most prominent, powerful beings in the galaxy. Humanity was still non-existent at this point. This is 40 million years in the past. The humans are cavemen at this point. Not even off of Earth. So, what do you do when you have no competition and are extremely powerful and can do whatever you want? Apparently, murder orgies.
Oh, okay.
Drug-fueled murder orgies.
Hey, Daniel, look at this. He's stuck.
He is stuck.
Buddy, you okay? Oh, hey, wait.
Talking about Warhammer lore, and he just like he had an aneurysm. Now he's on fire. So.
Well, this is not the way you want to take down a Big Daddy.
So essentially, what was I? Oh yeah.
Nope.
Elves. So they just did whatever they wanted. They made super strong drugs. They had massive orgies, and they killed each other because nothing mattered. It didn't matter what they did. They were the best. There was no threat, and they indulged in excess to the uttermost. There were some Eldar who were like, man, screw that, and they got on top. They got into these continent-sized spaceships called craft worlds, and they dipped. They kind of like threw themselves out into space. And then there are, and then the Eldar did this funky little thing called, excuse me, creating the webway. You see, no one likes being in the warp. It's dangerous and hard, and no one wants to do that. So the Eldar created a fun way to be in the warp without really being in the warp. So, imagine the warp as the nether, right?
Okay.
Now, you know, there's a nether highway, right? You're still in the nether, but you're like not really in it. You're in this enclosed space. And that's essentially what the webway is, except a little bit more removed. It's like a sub-dimension, I think. But it's still traveling through the warp without being in the warp, right? And that way, they didn't have to deal with demons. So even that competition was gone, because all Eldar are psychers. So demons are kind of an issue, but not if you don't depend on the warp at all. So they create the webway, and now they don't have to even travel through the warp. So then they decide to make buildings in the warp in the webway, because now if you're in the webway and you're in the warp, those space drugs hit that much harder. So then they're having their murder orgies in the webway.
Oh
and
no.
things go crazy, and eventually all that excess builds on itself, and the Slaanesh is born.
Okay.
And Slaanesh thanks the Eldar for its existence by eating their souls.
Oh!
And that is how the Eye of Terror is formed. That's where Slaanesh was born, and the Eye of Terror is essentially it's a place where the warp and reality are kind of blending together.
Okay.
And it's a not fun place. And this actually is what this event of Slaanesh being born and the Eye of Terror being opened, I believe, is what kicked off the Age of Strife for humanity. Which just tells you how long the Eldar had been indulging in everything, because they went from winning the war in heaven to, well, not winning, surviving the war in heaven, to doing that for almost 40 million years.
That's a lot of hours.
And that's why Slaanesh was born from that, because, you know, yeah. So, the Eldar who were in the webway didn't get eaten right away, but they felt the touch of Slaanesh, the pull of Slaanesh on their souls, and they were like, "Uh-oh, that's no bueno."
That's
And so
buenos noches.
So they were like, "There's gotta be a better way to do this living thing." And they decided to worship Slaanesh. If they make Slaanesh happy, he won't eat their souls, right?
Yeah, of course.
And it worked. So, but the thing is that eventually Slaanesh gets bored, and they had to escalate. So instead of murdering a person in cold blood in order to facilitate, in order to save their souls, they'd have to murder 3 people. And then they'd have to torture 5. And then they'd have to torture 7 infants. Or maybe, you know, whatever, right? The Drukhari are awful. The Dark Eldar are trapped in a position where they must do the worst things ever in order to keep their souls. So they are these utterly depraved individuals doing awful things. But it's so that they survive.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, most of them enjoy it.
Oh, that's not cool.
Yeah, I know. Really not awesome. So, that's the dude hanging from his wrist.
Yeah, he's a little stuck.
Yeah,
Aw.
someone get him out of there.
He's
that a
a
Bible?
little... Yeah, I guess he was Christian. Can I search him? I can search him even though he is, like, literally, like, being constantly electrocuted. Well, what if I smack this? Nope.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
he's hooked up to a car battery. That's rough. Rough stuff. That sounds like that's something a Drukhari would do, honestly, is just hook someone up to a car battery and crucify them on a waterfall.
Like, seriously max on, like, all of my ammo? Jeez. I need to start actually, like, fighting people with guns.
Yeah, start shooting people. You
Look,
have all the ammo.
Ah, hey, you! No.
Well,
I think it worked.
it worked, guys.
Alright, let's go and pick up this, buckshot.
So, then all the Craftworld Eldar, they were a little far away from the Eye of Terror, and they didn't get their souls consumed. And they were like, holy crap, that's no bueno. Let's not do that. So, luckily the Craftworld Eldar kind of learned from their mistakes, and they stopped doing that. I mean, they weren't doing it anymore anyways, because they were like, wow, this is getting out of hand, guys. Let's stop, maybe.
Now
And
there
then
are 2
everyone
of
was
them.
No, and now they're like, oh, let's stop for realsies this time, guys.
I can quit
there's
anytime
also-
I want.
There's also a different kind of Eldar, which is, I don't remember exactly what they're called, but there are these worlds that the Eldar basically have as, like, holy places.
Mm-hmm.
These, like, sacred spots where only Eldar are allowed to be. And they make no structures there because they consider those worlds to be perfect, and they consider them to be like the best places ever. And the only people who are there are these Eldar hippies, basically. They don't live in buildings; they just live off the land. They're friends with the animals and such. And they kind of live on these worlds called Maiden Worlds. So the Craft Worlders and the Maiden Worlds Eldar are buddies, and the Dark Eldar hang out in the Webway, and eventually they leave the Webway to go enslave people so that they can save their own souls. So, that's the Eldar. Let's do Necrons, because I love them. I kind of did their origins already. They tried to go to the old ones to get eternal life because their lives sucked. They were not happy campers. Their lifespans were extremely short, to the point where there was no point in focusing on what you could do while you were alive. There was no point in focusing on anything other than how people would remember you when you're dead. Just, there was an extreme focus on legacy, because that's all you had as a Necron, or a Necron tier, as they were called. But they went to the old ones and searched for eternal life, and they got turned down, because in their search for eternal life, they got brutal, and they got mean, and the old ones were like, you guys are mean, and they were like, no, we're not.
No.
Yeah, you are. So the old ones pushed them back to their home system, and it turns out that the reason why they had extremely short lifespans, the reason why their lives sucked, is because there was a thing in their star called a Catan. And these, or Catan, either one. But the one that, it kind of sounds like the board game, but it's not the board game. Anyways, these Catan were, or Catan, or, yeah, I'm gonna say Catan, alright? Catan. It's spelled C''T-A-N, so, yeah. Anyways, the Catan were these, yeah, they fed off of energy. They were like, yeah, we can give you eternal life. And then they gave them eternal life by turning them into robots and stealing their consciousnesses. So only extremely high-ranking Necrons still have their consciousness, and everyone else is just kind of a mindless drug. So the Necrons fought alongside the Catan. They pushed the old ones basically to extinction. They fought against the Eldar and the Krorks, and then eventually they were like, okay, we have our vengeance against the old ones, but you know who's the real enemy? The people who took our consciousnesses away, the Catan! And so they beat up the Catan, and then they went to sleep. For millions of years. And only recently did they start waking up in large numbers. And now they're like, hey, we used to rule the galaxy. We had massive empires reigning everywhere. The only reason we lost that is because of the stupid old ones, the stupid Catan. We deserve to rule. Thus, shut up. And then they do their thing. And that is the Necrons. I rather enjoy the Necrons. I really like going really deep into the War in Heaven is something I'd like to do in the future with you, because it's super awesome, and it gets a little more intricate than what I described. But yeah. Let's do Leagues of Votann are easy. We don't know. We don't really have any lore on what the Leagues of Votann are, other than that they are they're like a mutation of human. They're like dwarves, basically. And they have extremely long memories, they have extremely long grudges, and that's right, they like to mine, they love precious metals.
I did that.
The Leagues of Votann are in an interesting place because they have just been introduced into the set. You know, they just got here. So we don't really have a lot of info on them, but I am looking forward to see how they figure into the lore. The Tyranids, they are a life form that comes from outside of the galaxy. We don't know where they're coming from. All we know is that they are here to eat. And the reason they are here to eat is because that is what they do. They are basically mindless. They're a bug hybrid.
Man, I'm terrible.
Ruled by a. Don't be hard on yourself. I'm sure you'll get it.
It's the last one that I've got. Oh, it's spawning over here. Okay. It's the last one I've got to take down anyways, so now I'm in a spot where I could blow him up, so that'll be helpful. I just got to make sure he doesn't get to a little sister hideout.
That would be not ideal.
I wanna save the little sister. Hello. Oh, he's almost done.
Oh, that's good. So, the Tyranids, they are ruled by the High Command. And, they, you know, they're doing their thing. And they eat everything. All biomass. If it is alive and can be consumed, they will consume it, and they will use this information to make themselves stronger, essentially.
Gotcha.
And that's we have different hive fleets, so they have like different like shell colorations and everything. But they all have the same orders, which is consume. And then there is the Tau. Now the Tau they're little the meme that is that they are fish people communists. And the reason for that is because the driving philosophy of the Tau is the greater good. Whatever you do, whatever it is you choose to do with your life, well, actually, there's actually a big caste system among the Tau themselves. But any other species you join, whatever you choose to do, it must be for the greater good of the Empire. So the Tau are unlike other factions, which is that they allow other races to join them. There is the primary like Tau race, which are these like blue people. They have like blue skin. They have 4 fingers. They have little like holes on their heads, and they kind of work like the Covenant from Halo, where there is a bunch of different races doing their own thing within the Empire. I know you haven't played Halo, but
I'm gonna have to at some point. I know Ian was talking about wanting to get me to play Halo with him.
I mean, yes, it's.
I'd also be down with you as well, because like you and Ian are the 2 people that I know that do Halo, that like Halo.
Indeed. So then there's a couple different races in the Kroot. The Kroot are in the Tau Empire. There's the Kroot, who are these like carnivorous guys who kind of whatever they eat, they adapt. They're it's weird. They're kind of like whatever they eat, they adapt into their own like genes and use it. So let's say they eat a bird, they start growing feathers and they start growing wings and they can start to fly. They eat a turtle, their skin gets a little harder, a little tougher, and they form their own kind of shell. You eat a human, you start getting more intelligent or whatever.
Because we have big wrinkle brains.
Big wrinkle brains compared to the Kroot, probably. Then there are these. I forgot their names, but they're like these flying bugs. Tau bugs.
Wait, what? How? Okay, that's gotta be a glitch.
What? Wait, hold on. Let me see.
So, you see how it tells me how many little sisters are in the level?
Mm-hmm.
When they look like this, that means that they've all been saved.
Uh-huh.
However, right here, little sister just hanging out.
Just chilling. Maybe it's a bonus.
Free little sister!
The Vespid.
So long as I don't die.
That's right. So the Vespids are these like flying. They're these like flying bug boys that are part of the town. There are also humans in the town.
I just hate that grenade.
Yes, you did. You took that right in the jaw. You took that like a champ. But there are humans in the town, and you don't have to be part of the military if you're a human. You can just hang out in the town of Empire and just do whatever you want. As long as what you're doing is for the greater good. Other than the Farsight Enclaves, which basically there's this guy called Commander Farsight, and he took a look at the caste system and went, "This is a bunch of hooey. Man, there's the Celestial caste, and they get to just decide to do whatever they want, and we just have to do it, and they decide what the greater good actually is. What a bunch of horseradish. I think the greater good should be decided upon by the people, and we should be cooler than that." And then the Celestials went, "Shut up, go die," and he went, "I'm gonna go make my own colony." And they were like, "What? Heretic." He's like, "Heretic? What are you, a human?" Like, "Shut up." So he has his own thing over there. Yeah. So that's that. I'm trying to think of if I'm missing anyone else. We did humanity, obviously. We did Eldar, we did Dark Eldar, we did Tyranids, Tau, Otan, Necrons. And we did orcs. Is there anyone else? I'm gonna make sure. I believe that's everyone. Though, the Gene Stealers are part of the Tyranids. I'll briefly talk about Gene Stealers, because they're a little complicated. Basically, the Gene Stealers are a way that the Tyranids infest a world. They basically are stealthy. They infect the population slowly, and they are like, "I am a human here, and I'm chilling, and hey, have I told you about my cool cult that I have? The Four-Armed Emperor cult?" And everyone's like, "What? No." And they're like, "You know what you do to worship this cult?" And they're like, "What?" And they're like, "Reproduce." And they're like, "What? The heck, weirdo? Get away from me." But no, that's kind of what happens. Basically, the Gene Stealers take over the population by making more Gene Stealers, and then everyone's a Gene Stealer. And then when the Tyranids come, there's no resistance because everyone's a Gene Stealer. And if there is resistance, the Gene Stealers are fighting them, and then the Tyranids come and they back up the Gene Stealers. Anyways, long-winded way of saying the Gene Stealers are the vanguard forces of the Tyranid swarm.
Interesting.
Anyways, that is all of our all of the major factions. So what's the next question on your list there?
Well, one thing that I do find kind of interesting about the
Oh, sure.
the concept. I mean, it's still definitely a question. So this is
Mm-hmm.
this all started off as a TTRPG, right?
Right.
So I mean, like, as someone who doesn't know like anything about Warhammer, what is how do, how does it work as a TTRPG? I'm assuming it's like just battle simulation, sort of.
Yeah, so it's less of like an RPG, and it's more of a tabletop war game.
Yeah.
So essentially, you've seen my Warhammer models, right?
Yeah, I've seen
Or at least
I've
a
seen
few.
you painting your minis and or just working on them, and while I haven't like got a lot of you know, knowledge of what they are and how they like, you know, how they work in game, I've got a basic understanding of you know, their, you know, just I've played D&D, so I know first in some way how like tabletop you know, battle sim kind of works.
Sure. So each of the minis that I have is a game piece. But it's more than just a game piece in and of itself. It's part of a squad, most of the time. So, like, I think last time you saw me, I was painting my bike, right? Painting my Outrider. That bike is part of a squad of 3. And that squad of 3 bikes has their own rules. It has a rule of how far it can go. And a Warhammer board is not a grid. Is not a grid. So when you set up a Warhammer map, it's not on a grid. It's actually the way you move is in like inches, like with a tape measure.
Okay.
And then each of the weapons you equip it with also has rules. So how many? What do you have to roll in order to hit? What do you have to roll in order to wound? What do they have to roll in order to save from that hit? And then how much damage does it do? And then there's a bunch of mini rules that kind of get in the way of doing more damage, doing less damage, doing damage at all, so on and so forth. Essentially, the way it works, Warhammer is horrendously complicated. So you have a model, and it starts with movement, or technically you start with deployment. You place all your models in your zone. You have a specific spot where you can place your models. And once all the models are on the board, you take turns. You move all your troops, and they move. Technically, you have your full turn. So you move, and then you choose who you can see and shoot. And you can shoot, and then if you're close enough, you can charge into them, and you can have a fight. You can do melee combat and whatnot. And then there's it's very hard to describe without me like being here and like me pulling up rules and pulling up examples. But here, I'm gonna look at a data sheet of just a basic, like well, I want them to have a couple special rules I can explain. So I'll do my favorite unit, my favorite guy, which is my lieutenant with combi bolter, or combi weapon. The reason why I like him so much is just because he's such a troll. So he has 6 inches of movement. So when it's my movement phase, I can move him around the board 6 inches in any direction. Total.
Okay.
He has his ranged weapons are a combi weapon, which has a range of 24 inches. So if I see someone and they're 24 inches away, I can shoot them. 1 attack per attack, and he has a ballistic skill of 3 or higher. So if I see an enemy unit and they're within 24 inches, I have to roll 1 die, because... Oh yeah, and everything is always going to be a 6-sided die.
Oh, okay.
For Warhammer. Everything's a 6-sided die.
Is there any particular reason behind that?
It just makes it simpler. Rather than rolling a bunch of different kinds, you just have the one that you roll a lot.
I get that. It's like
So-
the Marvel multiverse RPG is always a D6. You roll 3 D6s to do pretty much everything.
Yeah, that's this. But sometimes you can roll up to like 24 d6s at a time.
Interesting.
So for this, I'm rolling my one attack. My ballistic skill is 3 or higher, so I roll, and if it's 3 or higher, I have hit you. Then I have to make sure that I'm actually wounding you. So the combi weapon has a strength of 4, and every model has its own toughness. Now, obviously the toughness will vary from model to model, but let's say the enemy I'm shooting has a toughness of, for the sake of the example, they have a toughness of 3. So, my strength is higher than their toughness, which means I will be hitting them on a 3 or higher. Or I'll be wounding them on a 3 or higher. Let's say for the sake of the argument that their toughness is 2, while my strength is 4. So now they have, not only is their toughness less than mine, but it's half, which brings it down to being 2 or higher. I'll wound them. And it goes the other way as well. Let's say they have a toughness, or they have a toughness of 5, of my strength 4. They would have to, so that I would have to roll a 5 or higher because they're tougher than my strength. Let's say they have a 8, so it's double. Then I have to roll a 6 or higher. Then we get to their save. So let's say I've rolled and I've hit them, and I've rolled and I've wounded them. So now we get to their saving throw. Each model has their own saving throw. This lieutenant has a saving throw of 3. So let's say I've wounded, or I've hit and I've wounded, then they roll and it's a 3. They're fine. Nothing happens. There's also another part of the weapon called AP, which is armor piercing or armor penetration or something like that, which will lower or will heighten their save. So if this weapon has AP 0, but if it had AP -1, that would mean that their saving throw would go from a 3 or higher to a 4 or higher. If it's AP -2, then it's 5, whatever. But let's say they roll a 1 on their save. So it hits, it wounds, they don't fail, they fail their save. I have now hit them. It's 1 damage per. So congrats, I have done 1 damage. Now you might be wondering, 1 damage? Big whoop. Well, most units only have 1 to 2 wounds, which is 1 to 2 health. So so most of the time I will have killed somebody with 1 wound. This lieutenant has 4 wounds because he's a swanky little guy like that. Space Marines in general have 2 wounds, I believe. Humans have 1 wound. Foot soldiers have 1 wound. Yeah, a lot of different people have just 1 wound. So 1 damage is plenty. Big tanks have like 15 or 20. Those are like knights. And then like titans have like 100. It's crazy. So that's ranged weapons. Melee weapons work much the same, except you have to do something called a charge first, where no matter where I move, the one thing I cannot do before the one thing I can't do when I move is move to the point where I am touching the base of my model to the base of my enemy's model, which is called engagement. I need to be at least an inch apart.
Okay.
When you get to the charge phase, you roll to see how far you can charge. You roll 2d6 for your charge, and however much you roll is how much your charge is. So let's say my lieutenant is 6 inches away from an enemy. I would have to roll my 2 dice. There we go. And if it's 6 or higher, I have completed my charge, and I charge, and our bases are touching, and now I can use my melee weapons.
Okay.
But if I roll a 5 or a 4, I don't go anywhere. I stay where I'm at, because I failed my charge.
Gotcha.
And then once I'm in engagement range, I can use my melee weapons, which this one is a paired combat blades, which have 5 attacks. Our weapon skill is 2 or higher, and then strength 4, maybe none. So, simple enough, right? You got your movement, you got your attacks, charges, all that good stuff.
All the good stuff.
Well, here's where it starts getting complicated, is when you get into little tiny rules. So, my combi weapon has a keyword called anti-infantry 4-up, which basically means if the enemy that I am attacking is considered an infantry unit, I do a critical hit on a 4 or higher. Usually a critical hit won't do anything unless it has another one of these little fun rules in here. Which it does. Devastating wounds. Which means on a critical wound, no saving throw of any kind can be made against that attack. So that means, if my lieutenant is fighting an infantry monk, and he rolls a 4-up on his die, on his wound roll, that counts as a critical hit. And because it's a critical hit, they can't save on that attack, thus the damage goes through.
Gotcha.
So they can't save it, no matter what, even if they have something called an invulnerable save. They can't use that. And it just goes through, and I do damage. It also has something called Rapid Fire 1, which means each time this weapon targets a unit within half the opponent's range, so let's say my lieutenant is 12 inches away from their target, out of 4, I get to attack another time. So instead of doing 1 attack, I do 2.
Okay.
That is the bare bones basics of how the game works, plus a couple spicy rules to see that it can get more complicated than the basics. So originally, Warhammer, as it was called, just Warhammer, was actually a fantasy thing. This was then called Warhammer Fantasy. And the creators of Warhammer Fantasy were like, what if we had Warhammer in the future? And thus, Warhammer 40k was born. And so, Warhammer 40k started out as this weird parody. And now it has grown so far into its own thing that it actually it's honestly quite impressive. Anyway, what is another question you have?
Sorry, just a second. In a gunfight.
Oh,
Also, there's someone on the ceiling, and I don't know where she's at, but she's on the ceiling somewhere. Oh,
Yes.
you're right there. Man, you are much higher health than I thought. Alright. I'm not sure. All of that, just to say, like, I don't know. This has been quite an interesting endeavor. Is there anything else that you would like to share as far as Warhammer goes?
I guess to take a break from talking about all the lore and everything, one thing I do want to talk about is the community.
Yeah.
I love the Warhammer community. Obviously, there are those who, I'm not going to call them bad actors, but like, there are those in the Warhammer community that are less than perfect. There
Yeah.
are those who can get annoying, those that are, you know, whatever. But I love the Warhammer community as is right now. Like the people that I've interacted with, because most of the time they're not super gatekeepy about things. They're not ultra annoying about my faction's the better one. Oh, I like these guys way better. You suck, right? It's just like a, oh, you'll play these guys? Oh, you think this is cool? Yeah, dude. Oh, dude, it's awesome, right? It's a super fun space, and I just really, really, really love the community around Warhammer and all of the people that are involved. I know I would have never gotten into Warhammer without my friends from school who kind of got me into it, and none of us play the same army. My friend who got me into it, he plays Chaos Space Marines.
Okay.
Another friend of mine, he plays Custodes. And then another friend of ours, he plays Adeptus Mechanicus. And then, Caden, he plays Tyranids.
Okay.
Which is...
I didn't know
which
Caden
is-
was in it. Or like,
I'm
yeah, interested.
getting him into it. That's what, I don't know if you've heard me bothering him about his 3D printer. We found a bunch of files where online where you can print Warhammer models. Obviously, they're not as great as like the actual models themselves, but they're pretty good. And yeah, he's been like printing his own minis. He's offered to print me some minis, and it's just been a super fun time. Getting people into Warhammer, talking about Warhammer. So yeah.
Nice. What is like the biggest frustration with the community, or just like the way that, or maybe just not the community, but just the way that Warhammer is right now? What do you think is the worst part of it right now?
Oh, honestly, it's actually the game company itself. The way it operates is oh so obviously very much money oriented, right? And there's nothing inherently wrong with like wanting money as a company. That's, why companies exist. But it's like it gets absurd sometimes. One of the more famous examples of this is with actually the Marines I play, Space Marines. For the longest time, the way that you built a Space Marine army was with a squad known as the Tactical Squad. So these Tactical Marines, they had a bunch of different weapons across each member. So one guy had a rocket launcher, one guy had a machine gun, one guy had a pistol, but he had like a cool radar thing or whatever, right? And all of a sudden, there was this big event in the lore, and Tactical Marines started getting phased out, and they got replaced by the Primaris Marines. And with the Primaris Marines, rather than each member of the squad having a different weapon, each squad had a different weapon. So all of a sudden, instead of selling one box with a bunch of Tactical Marines with a bunch of different things so that they're super versatile, you got one box and all of them have flamethrowers, or you have one box with a bunch of machine guns or whatever. And so then all of a sudden it got really expensive to collect Space Marines, because instead of buying a few boxes of Tactical Marines to do the same thing, you had to buy a box of exterminators and a box of infiltrators and a box of this and a box of that. And that's how it has just started to be. It's just extremely expensive to do Warhammer. It's expensive this hobby is not a cheap hobby. And it never has been for any army. There isn't necessarily a cheap one. No matter what, you're going to be spending hundreds of dollars.
Casually drank like 8 bottles of alcohol in 10 seconds.
And here you are, just drunk off your gourd.
That was a bad idea because I definitely need some more Eve. How those.
And I mean, it's like, there are some armies that are cheaper or more expensive than others. For example, Gene Stealers or Tyranids are a very expensive army to collect because they're swarm armies.
Mm-hmm.
And swarm armies are the like the squads or the groups aren't worth a lot of points. So okay. Going back to how the game works, like the tabletop game works. The way that you build an army is, let's say you're playing an 1,000-point game. Each squad is worth a certain amount of points. So like a normal squad of Space Marines is, I think it's 75 points, and then you make as many squads, you slam as many squads together as possible to until you get your 1,000 points, and then you play.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Tyranids and Orcs and Gene Stealers and Necrons are all swarm armies. They rely on numbers, so it's more expensive because you have to buy more, and you have to paint more, and you have to, have, safe boxes to carry more. All this stuff. And you have to just have more things.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas with, let's say you're playing Knights, you really only need 3 models. Sure, they're really expensive models. A Knight model can cost like $200. But let's say you buy 2 Knights, that's your whole army. You paint those 2 Knights and they look awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're fighting a Tyranids player, and they have sunk $2,000 into having a huge swarm of Tyranids that are like spec'd into fighting Knights, and it's a whole bunch of models on the board, and you have 2.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, sure, you're both playing the same game, but who spent more, right? So it comes into it is a big money thing with Warhammer. Which sucks, but it's just kind of how it is. That is one thing that kind of drove me away at first, and luckily there are ways to get around that. Tabletop Simulator.
Yeah.
There's a mod for Tabletop Sim that adds Warhammer models as game assets, so you can play Warhammer 40k, the army of your choice, in Tabletop Sim. So you
That's really cool.
So you don't have to buy the right models or anything like that. You can just play the game and test out different armies or whatever, and not spend a penny other than... And the mod is free, so you just buy Tabletop Sim, and all of a sudden, boom, you can play 40k.
See, that was kind of a thought for me as well when it comes to the game, right? The idea that, like, it, in the same way that, let's just say, Pokemon has proxy cards, is there a way, like, could I, instead of getting a figure, could I just be like, oh, I've got this quarter. This is my figure.
Yes. So the most important thing in Warhammer with the base thing with Warhammer for playing the game is base size. So you can literally take a base. So let's say, right now I'm holding my Marshall model, and he has a certain size of base. I think it's 32 millimeters. So if you take his base and you just cut out a paper circle of how big it is, and you take that paper circle and you say, this is my Marshall, and you put him on the board. And then you just have to do line of sight based on bases, and you have to do line of sight, and that's how it works. You just use these paper circles as your models, and you can tape a little flat sheet of paper on top of the base and draw your model if you wanted to. But yeah, you can proxy in models. Another thing you can do is, let's say you have one army and you want to test out another army to see how it plays before diving in and sinking a bunch of money into buying that army. If you have models, the base sizes are the same. So let's say you look into a model in one army and he has the same base size as a model from a different army that you have. You can just use that model as that character. So there are ways that the community has come up with to proxy in models to make things cheaper, to like test things out and whatever. But if you're doing like an official Warhammer tournament, obviously you can't do that.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah. Anything else?
Let's see. I'm just trying to think. Man, we've been going for like nearly 3 hours. Wow.
Oh yeah, wow.
This has been interesting. Yeah, one thing that kind of stood out to me is the nature of how figures get painted.
Oh, sure.
So like when it comes to figures, like painting a figure, is there a correct way to paint a figure?
There is a lot of different methods to doing it. I wouldn't say that there's like a right way or a wrong way. There are certainly there is one wrong way, I would say. And that is what is referred to as one thick coat.
Okay.
The biggest thing you'll hear all the time when you get into painting Warhammer minis is thin your paints, thin your paints, thin your paints. And what that means is all of the paints in the little canisters that you get, or out of the little tubes or whatever when you see me working, some of them are too thick to paint with effectively. When you put them on, it's gonna stick inside the tiny details, it's gonna stick together, and it just won't look good. So
yeah, and it'll like clump together.
Precisely. So you add a little bit of water to the paint, and it thins it out, and you can spread it across details, and so it seeps into cracks, and it makes the model look better. There are some horrifically painted models where people evidently did not thin their paints. Here, let me find a few and throw them in our DMs.
Okay.
One thick coat. Warhammer. See, that's like not that bad. Oh, that's because it's actually black. Oh.
Are you hurting yourself?
This is awful. This is sad. This is sad to see. This is oh, these poor models. Someone save them.
Ah!
Oh, these are just actual tutorials that I'm looking at now. No, here we go. Yeah. Look at that guy. Alright, these three images will sum them up well.
Alright. I see that they have been sent, but I'm hacking something right now. Boom.
Alright.
Oh! His face! Oh, give me a second. I gotta pull that up. That'll be OBS, screen 2. There we go. And then look at that guy. Oh, that's hilarious.
They look horrific.
Oh.
But yeah, like if you notice, like with my models where I paint, there's all the intricate details. That's one thing that like anyone who ever comes up to me while I'm painting and they pick up the model and they look at them and they're like, oh, look at all these details. The thick coats just eliminate those entirely.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, and it looks like that. So thinning your paints is like the one thing I will say is the correct method. You're always thinning your paints. But then there's like different ways of painting. The method I use is I do a base layer. Okay, so first I will I do a layer of, I'm blanking on words. Hold on, it'll come to me. Primer. So I use a black spray primer for most of my models. So I spray on a bunch of black primer, and then I get to work on the model itself. I add in different colors, different details on the model, and it's all on, and then that's the base layer. There's the base coat. Then when for armor pieces, what I'll do is a technique called dry brushing, where I dip my paintbrush into silver paint, and I wipe it on the paper towel I have set out until there's like barely any paint left on the brush, and then I'll just kind of swipe it across the armor plate, and then the little paint that's left sticks on edges and in tiny little crevices, and it makes it have this metallic sheen on it. And then I kind of dry brush all the armor plates with like that. Oh, there was Alex. Could you hear him laugh?
Very briefly for a second.
Let's see. Well, anyways, so that's dry brushing. Other than that, there isn't really a correct way. There's a lot of different methods. There's layering. There's a difference between a base paint and a layer paint, where you put on the base paint, and then wherever you there's edges or where the sun would hit it, you put on a slightly lighter shade of that paint to add details and stuff. And I do that sometimes, but most of the time I just do base paint, dry brush, add in some shading, or I throw in some shade paints, like everyone's favorite paint, Nuln Oil. Nuln Oil is why is it not flowing? Oh. I was like, usually it just goes, but you didn't push the button yet. Anyway,
Oh yeah, I was just sitting there for a sec. What is this from?
Nuln Oil is, I think, the most used shade paint. It is because it's the black shade paint, and it's very, very good at what it does. It makes the armor look, it makes armor and clothes and everything look grungy and worn and used, which is the aesthetic of Warhammer, all right. So yeah, Nuln Oil is
I realize
Also,
why this room is interesting. It's currently doing a thing where it's telling me stuff, and I'm probably about to engage in a fight. But these two people died. Apparently, I'm assuming they were in love because they died in each other's arms, and this is just a bunch of pills.
oh,
So
Romeo and Juliet.
yeah. Reduces duration of camera alarms? I don't care about the camera alarms. I haven't even set one off in a while.
In a while. So, yeah. Any other questions?
Well, I mean, I guess still in the same vein of
Sure.
minis. My thought, not just in terms of how do they need to be painted, I guess, is there a way that they ought to be painted? I know that when it comes to the idea of lore,
sure.
People who play Warhammer 40k tend to go into an autistic amount of detail on this is what needs, this is the lore, this is the correct stuff. So the idea that you could just paint your figure however, I just kind of wonder, is that how it be, or is there a canon way that you ought to do it?
So, technically speaking, you can paint your minis however you want. However, there are correct, lore-accurate ways to paint minis and to design minis.
Gotcha.
So, for example, my Blood Angel models are technically not lore accurate. The way Blood Angels are painted is usually a base of red with a red trim on their pauldrons and a black eagle. And that is also Flesh Terrors. What I do, red base, gold trim, gold eagle.
Okay.
Everyone knows that it's a Blood Angel because those are the Blood Angel colors. But usually you're only supposed to use the gold eagle or the gold trim for special models, special versions, whatever. Or for example, the ultra nerd way to do things. There is a book in the Warhammer universe called the Codex Astartes, and it is the way that that Space Marines are supposed to be organized, and it also includes details on how they're supposed to paint their armor.
Gotcha.
And that includes where the designs on their pauldrons go. It decides what trim their shoulder pauldron, what color their pauldrons are. So, for example, if I was painting a Ultramarine veteran from the first company, the Ultramarine symbol would be on his left shoulder plate. On his right shoulder plate would be the veteran symbol, and the pauldron trim would be white.
Okay.
Most people paint Ultramarines with a gold trim on their shoulders because that is the most popular way to paint them. I think that is second company. Another popular way to paint Ultramarines is actually fourth company, which is a green trim, and the only reason that's popular is because of a book series where the main character is from the Ultramarines fourth company, and his name is Uriel Ventress. And anyways, so when it comes to a Codex compliant chapter, if you're like painting with someone who's like an ultra lore master, and you start like putting the symbol on the right pauldron instead of the left, and they're gonna be like, that's not where that goes. Or if you start like painting their pauldrons or their knees a certain color, they're like, wait a minute, the way you paint that kneecap is only for lieutenants.
Oh,
He's
how could
a
you?
captain, right? Like, so most of the time people will leave you alone for your painting choices, but there is technically a lore accurate. So it's not like a correct way, it's a lore accurate way to paint things. So yeah, I guess that's the best distinction. Lore accurate versus correct. Especially when it comes to characters. Like if I go and I paint I get a model of Rabute Gilliman, the Primarch of the Ultramarines, and I am like the best painter in the world, and so I paint his armor black and red, and I make him emo, right? Sure, I painted him well, but his armor is blue and gold.
Gotcha.
So, yeah. So I sometimes will do my best to be like, this is a lore accurate way to paint this model, or this is a lore accurate way to put on these transfers. But I don't like go ultra uber goober hard into it unless I need to. And or I want to. Like if it gets way too annoying, then I just like I stop caring. The fun thing about the army that I run, which is the Black Templars, is they are non-codex compliant. They don't follow those norms. So I get to paint them really however I want. And everyone else who tells me, but there's a way that where you yeah, kick rocks, okay?
Kick the rock.
So, yes.
What? Oh, research complete. Okay. There we go. What are you? Ah.
So yeah.
That's interesting.
Indubitably, sir.
Thank you, child. Oh. How did I miss this? Wrench Lurker. Quiets your footsteps and increases damage from melee attacks on unaware opponents. That's cool. And now, I get a bunch of Adam. Because that's cool. Ooh, good for now. Oh, I don't need that. I'm just gonna hold off. What do you need? Oh, hi, Splicer.
So then, any other questions for me?
I think we've exhausted most of the list that I had. Yeah, going through a lot of the lore. I guess here's an interesting one. So I know that the show, I mean, maybe not show. They haven't confirmed that a show is happening, other than like it's in the works and Henry Cavill's like trying to work on it through Amazon, I think it is.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on that?
So I'm actually very excited for it because I think Henry Cavill is the perfect person to work on a Warhammer show.
Mm-hmm.
Because apparently he got kicked off of The Witcher for sticking to the lore too much.
Yep,
The writers wanted to
that
do
takes
their
me
own
off to
thing.
here. Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly the kind of person we need at the helm of a Warhammer show. However, I do think there is a right or wrong thing to do the show about. And I think what the show needs to be about, it should be about something that anyone can enjoy. And there are two main things that I think that, because normally people want to say, do it about the Horus Heresy, right? Which would be a fun show, don't get me wrong. But the Horus Heresy requires such an amount of background and lore that it is extremely difficult to appeal to a wide mainstream audience, because they'll be sitting through expo dumps and being like, who the heck is this Corvus Corax guy and why do I care? So I think it should be about one of two characters, which is either Caiaphas Cain or Inquisitor Eisenhorn.
Mm-hmm.
Caiaphas Cain he's a commissar, so like a leader in the human army, who is a massive coward. Well, not really a coward. He's out for himself.
Okay.
But his selfish actions and the way he handles himself are so bizarre that it ends up making everyone love him, and he saves the day. Other than the snarky superiors. So, like, usually commissars are known for this thing where if a soldier shows cowardice, if a soldier shows, hesitance to fight in battle, they just shoot them. Because, hey, that's lowering morale. Blam, you're dead. Everyone better fight at your best now. Look what happens, right? That's what commissars are known for. But not Cain. Cain was fighting on the front lines with his men, and he would heighten morale. People are like, oh man, I don't want to face that giant thing that feels like it's made of teeth. And Cain just goes, oh, that thing? Watch this. Throws a grenade at it, it blows up. If I can kill that thing, we can kill those. Let's go. So Cain is the hero of the Imperium. He is a crazy, crazy dude who's just kind of wacky. Sometimes he runs away because he's like, self-preservation, but most of the time he is a lovable commissar and I think you'd be a wonderful person to base the first thing a Warhammer show on.
Mm-hmm.
The other is Inquisitor Eisenhorn, who is, I think I've talked about him before. He's an Inquisitor who he like hunts down like weird artifacts, and he's like defending the Imperium. So I think Eisenhorn would be interesting because you get a wider look at the Warhammer setting. You get your kind of enemy of the week type vibe, yeah, he's just a very interesting character to follow because, like Kane, he's not a typical Inquisitor. It feels like he actually has a heart. And yeah, so I think those two characters are really good characters for Henry Cavill to play, and would be excellent stories for a mainstream audience, which would just catapult more interest in the setting as a whole, and it would make it easier for complicated stuff in the future, like a Horus Heresy thing, right? So yeah, I'm optimistic.
Honestly, like, as far as everything goes, I'm very interested in the idea. My only worry is that, like, maybe this is the kind of thing where, like, nothing would appease fans.
Sure.
That is definitely a worry in my eyes. It's like, is there a... I mean, like, is there a version of this that will absolutely appease everyone? Maybe. I just wonder, is that feasible, especially, like, with the number of fans that there are?
Right. Well, I think no matter what, someone's gonna be sad, right?
Yeah.
Because in the end of the day, someone just goes, oh, yeah, making a Warhammer show and it's based on humanity. What about the Eldar? What about the Necrons? What about the, you know... And it's like, yeah, but this is a launching point. Who knows? Maybe the next Warhammer show will be the Tales of the Craft World, and it's about a bunch of Eldar. Or it's the Waking of Tomb World Blingus, and it's about Necrons, right? And I think it's really important for fans to realize that this show isn't just a show. It is the beginning of something more. At least it can be.
Yeah.
And that's what we have to root for.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like, I feel like that's kind of the same when it comes to every IP that hasn't made its way to, you know, being a show. Where, like, we're definitely in an age where video games and just, like, things that are not movies and shows are going to become movies and shows because, like, that's just what a lot of people want.
Right.
And I wonder, you know, just how... I worry because, like, with the way that Hollywood is and the way that the industry is right now, I wonder if that's, like, a good idea because, I mean, you definitely know how I feel about a lot of different stuff, right?
Sure.
A lot of shows. I'm actually thinking of going back to that Falcon and the Winter Soldier critique that I started and actually finishing it. Because, like, I got really far in it. I got through 5 episodes, and then I was like, okay, I gotta... I actually hate doing this, and so I gave up.
Let's pump the brakes on this thing.
Well, it wasn't that I hated doing it, it's that, the last episode was just so bad that I was like, I don't even want to finish this.
Sure. Yeah, no, I know how stoked you were about that one.
Oh man, the thing that frustrated me the most about it was the fact that everyone in our friend group was just like, "Oh no, it's good,"
Right.
and I was like,
Yeah.
"Wait,
And you were
but
like,
no,
it wasn't."
no, it's actually like the worst show that I'd ever seen." And then Loki came out just a few months later.
And you were like, never mind.
Yep. Pretty much.
What did you think of? Did you watch Loki season 2?
Oh yeah.
What'd you think of that?
Even worse.
Interesting.
What did you watch it?
I did.
Okay.
I didn't really know what to think. I thought some things were interesting about it, but I was like, I don't know. I'm not very analytically brained unless I turn on that part of my brain, and I didn't.
Gotcha. Yeah, for me, it was like... It was the same thing with Loki Season 1, where it's like, within 30 seconds, I was like, okay, this is getting real bad. Where for Loki Season 2, it was like, within 10 seconds, he's like, time-slipping in the TVA, and, that is already like a...
I thought they were gonna tie that into, Miles Morales for a bit.
Oh, yeah?
I was like, oh, are they doing a Spider-Verse thing? And I kind of got excited about that, and then I remembered what.
I mean, like, I didn't even know what to think, because it's like, they established in, Loki Season 1 that the TVA is an organization that exists outside of time and space, which I would love someone to explain to me how that works.
Ah, yes, this is a place that exists outside of places.
Yep, this is a time that exists outside of time.
Yeah, that's... See, like, bringing it back to Warhammer, like, the Immaterium, it also exists outside of time and space.
Okay.
As a... But but it's not like an organization. It is an inherently chaotic place that exists with demons and nigh deific beings existing there. Nothing else. And it's like, yeah, no, they're... And the only, like, quote-unquote structures that are in the warp are, you know, like, the Drakari fortresses, like Komarog and stuff like that. Oh yeah, I forgot to name drop the city that the Drakari live in.
How do I... Well, that's gonna be frustrating forever. Started the game with the wrench in the first slot, and then because I picked up a gun in that section, now it swapped the wrench to the second slot.
Can you not move it?
It doesn't look like it. Nope.
Oof.
Nope, okay. Well, that's fine.
Well, I'll have to live with this.
I love this section of the game, by the way, because, like, you spend the whole thing, you know, you saw me slowly collecting these guns and learning, how to use them, and then this one is just like, so, because you also have these mind powers, and the game is just like, so, we're gonna put you in a position where you have to drop all of them off, and then you have to fight with just your mind powers.
Oh.
And it's like, oh, that's pretty neat.
Interesting.
And the game does that just every so often. It's just like, haha, we're gonna throw you in a new situation. This game's very fun.
Glad you're enjoying it more than you enjoyed Loki Season 2.
Yes.
I thought the ending was really, really weird.
Oh, yeah? Would you... Like, what was weird about it?
Well, he made the world tree.
Yep, that's a little weird part.
That's a little funky dunky.
I like how they just keep on... The MCU just keeps on making more and more powerful characters to such an extent where, like... Loki is now in control of how he exists throughout all of time and space. That's a little confusing. Oh geez, I'm already like a third of the way through the game.
Wow.
Nice. I'll have to keep playing.
You know, See, like in Warhammer, to bring it back,
Mm-hmm.
the reason why everyone is so powerful is because everyone is powerful. It's like in the first Incredibles movie, everyone's special, no one is.
Yeah.
It's true. In Warhammer, everyone is overpowered. You go into the Primarchs or the Custodians, and they're mega overpowered. And then you, like, if you go into humanity, right? They have the Space Marines, the Primarchs, the Custodians. They have these giant Imperial Titans, right? Then you go to any other faction, and they're just as powerful. You have the Eldar with their avatars of Cain, people who literally, like, they siphon the powers of the Eldar God of War in order to do crazy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Or Wraithbone engines. That's not what they're called, but like these massive, like things made out of this special metal that can house elven souls. It's crazy. Or the Necrons, who are technically underpowered now because Cesaric decided that, hey, you know our giant galaxy-destroying weapons that we used on the regular during the War in Heaven? Let's destroy them.
Oh no.
Because Cesaric was like, he's the leader of the Necrons, he's the Silent King, and he was like, we have these huge giant weapons that are in unimaginable power. This gun, this pistol I'm holding, is a targeting computer for the planet-sized ultra mega Death Star hovering over there that can destroy anything I want with a push of a button. No one should wield this kind of power, so they destroyed them. There are still some of them left, obviously, because no one throws all of their power away.
Of course not. Who would?
So, and they become MacGuffins.
Oh, gotta love them.
So, yeah, there's a lot of... So, Necrons are crazy powerful. There are some Primarchs that use Necron weapons. Alfarius, his spear is a Necron phase weapon. Basically, it has the ability to just phase out of reality and then reappear, so it can cut through anything. Because it just goes through it and then reappears already inside it.
Okay.
Very fun weapon. Actually, Commander Farsight, one of the Tau, he has a Necron weapon. Well, technically it's a Xenos weapon of unknown origin thought to be of Necron design.
Oh yes.
It's a sword that basically, when you kill someone, however long their lifespan would have been had you not killed them, their natural lifespan, before you killed them, whatever that was, gets added to yours.
Gotcha.
So let's say there's like a 40-year-old man and he's gonna live to 80, and you stab him with that sword. Congratulations, you're gonna live 40 more years. Or let's say there's an Eldar. They're 100 years old, they're gonna live to 1,000. You kill them, congratulations, you're gonna live 900 more years. Farsight is a warlord. He is striking down people left and right with this thing. He is functionally immortal. Because all these people's lifespans have just been added to his. And I don't think he didn't do it intentionally because he doesn't use that. But anyways, yeah, Necron tech is scary. Anyways. But yeah, so everyone's overpowered, therefore no one is, because that's just how Warhammer works. The power scaling is just totally different. That's why when you see all those videos of like, could a Space Marine destroy thus and such? Yes. Yes, they could. Other than there's one video that I disagree with, which was could a Space Marine beat Doomslayer? No, the Doomslayer literally fought skyscraper-sized demons for fun. A single Space Marine. But it's just at scale of what is so cool. A single chapter of Space Marines, which is 1,000 Space Marines, could take over the Earth. A legion of Space Marines back when they were 1,000. So after the Horus Heresy, Gilliman decided that Space Marines should be only 1,000. And so he made the Codex Astartes, and the Codex Astartes says Space Marine legions are cut into chapters, and each chapter is 1,000 Space Marines. And some of the Primarchs decided that was a good idea. Others of them were like, ain't no way I'm following that stupid rule, and decided to do their own thing, as it were. For example, Leman Russ of the Space Wolves, he decided, screw that. But, yeah, so like a legion of Space Marines, with thousands and thousands of Space Marines, easily could take over the Earth. Easily. A chapter, which is just 1,000 specialized forces, they could take over the Earth. It'd take a bit. It might turn into a war of attrition after a while. But they could, for sure. Anyways, any closing thoughts on this one?
Not really, no.
Alright.
I think, honestly, that is probably a really good spot to stop, because that's a good stopping point in the game, and it seems like we've exhausted most of the discussion.
Yeah. I mean, if you ever come up with more questions, I'd be more than happy to sit down and talk more, because I love talking more. I just don't know what to talk about at this point.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely interesting. I'd love to get to know more about 40K, just to kind of discuss it more and like understand it more, just because it seems like a really fun thing. I just don't know pretty much anything about it.
I don't know what to talk about, and you don't know what to ask.
Yep, that's kind of it. Yep.
That is the point which we have reached.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it has been an honor discussing this with you, my friend.
It has been quite fun.
All right. Well, I shall see you soon then. But yeah, see you around, bro.
Yeah, have a good one.